They called me the Hollow One. In Stonecrest Pack, where every wolf's first shift happens on their 16th birthday under the watchful eyes of the moon goddess, I turned 16 in silence. No bones cracking. No first sprouting. No wolf rising to claim its place in my soul. Just emptiness. My mother wept. My father looked away. And my twin sister, Delilah, golden, perfect, radiant Delilah, she smiled. That cold, satisfied smile that said what everyone was thinking. Finally, we have proof. Ravenna was never meant to be one of us. For 3 years, I lived as a ghost in my own pack. Invisible. Worthless. The girl whose wolf never came. But here's the thing about being invisible. You see things others miss. You hear whispers in dark corners. You notice when patrol schedules change without reason. When pack members disappear and no one asks why. When your own sister meets with rogues under the cover of moonless nights. And on the eve of my 19th birthday, when they dragged me to the judgment circle and declared I would be exiled as human-born, as defective, as hollow, that's when it finally happened. My wolf didn't just arrive. She erupted. And she was nothing like they expected. Nothing like the legends warned about. Nothing the Stonecrest Pack, or any pack in the Northern Territories, was prepared to face. They wanted to cast out the wolfless girl. Instead, they awakened something that should have stayed buried. Something the ancient texts called the Wraith Luna, a creature born only once every millennium, when the moon goddess herself weeps for her children's corruption. My name is Ravenna Ashmore. I am 19 years old. And this is the story of how the pack that threw me away learned that some wolves aren't meant to bow. They're meant to reign.
Chapter 1.
Oh, only the morning of my 19th birthday. No one came to wake me. Not that I expected them to. Birthdays in Stonecrest Pack are sacred, a celebration of another year grown stronger, another year closer to finding your fated mate, another year proving your worth to the pack hierarchy. But when you're the Hollow One, the girl whose wolf never came, birthdays are just another reminder of everything you're not. I pushed myself up from the thin mattress on the floor of the storage room where I'd been sleeping for the past 2 years. Calling it my room would be generous. It was 8 feet by 6 feet, tucked behind the pack kitchens, smelling perpetually of grease and rotting vegetables. A single narrow window near the ceiling let in a sliver of gray morning light. My twin sister, Delilah, had a room in the main house. Silk curtains, a 4-poster bed, a view of the mountains, everything befitting the daughter of Marcus Ashmore, beta of the Stonecrest Pack. Everything befitting a wolf who'd shifted at 16 into a magnificent golden creature that had the entire pack buzzing for weeks. I had a mattress that smelled like mildew and a bucket in the corner for washing. The difference between us wasn't just our wolves. It was everything. I splashed cold water on my face from the bucket, staring at my reflection in the cracked mirror someone had discarded 3 years ago. Violet eyes, the mark of the cursed, according to pack superstition, stared back at me. Eyes the color of twilight before a storm. Eyes that marked me as other from the day I was born. Delilah had our mother's warm brown eyes. Soft. Trusting. Human-looking enough to be comforting. I had gotten our grandmother's eyes. The grandmother no one spoke about. The one who'd been exiled before I was born for reasons that died with the previous alpha. Ravenna. The sharp voice cut through my thoughts. I turned to find Mistress Kara, the head of kitchen staff, glaring at me from the doorway. She was a hard woman, all sharp angles and sharper words, who took particular pleasure in reminding me of my place. You're late. The breakfast service won't prepare itself. I'm sorry, mistress. I'll be right. Sorry, don't feed 300 wolves, girl. She snapped her fingers impatiently. Get to work. And try not to burn the sausages like you did yesterday. Half the pack warriors complained. I hadn't burned the sausages. Delilah had, during her brief stint helping in the kitchens, a punishment for sneaking out past curfew that lasted all of 3 hours before our mother convinced the alpha to let her off with a warning. But I'd been the one working the stoves when the warriors came in for breakfast, so naturally, I'd been the one blamed. Yes, mistress, I said quietly, pulling on my stained apron and following her into the massive kitchen that served Stonecrest's central dining hall. The kitchen was already in chaos. Wolves moved in practiced choreography, chopping, stirring, plating, barking orders. I slipped into my usual position at the far end, where the least important tasks were assigned. Potato peeling, dish washing, anything that kept me away from the pack members who preferred not to see me. "Did you hear?" One of the younger kitchen girls, Bryn, whispered as she passed me a mountain of potatoes to peel. "The Alpha's calling a full pack assembly tonight, at the Judgement Circle." My hands stilled on the peeler. "What for?" Bryn glanced around nervously before leaning closer. "They're saying it's about you." Ice flooded my veins. "Me? Everyone knows you're 19 today." Bryn's voice dropped even lower. 3 years past your first shift. The council's been pushing Alpha Thaddeus to make a ruling about your status. About whether you can stay in the pack without a wolf. "I can stay," I said, but the words sounded hollow even to my own ears. "I'm pack-born. I'm Beta's daughter." "You're also wolfless," Bryn said, and there was pity in her eyes that somehow hurt worse than cruelty. "The old laws are clear, Ravenna. Wolves who don't shift by 19 are considered human-born. And humans can't stay in pack territory unless they're bound to a wolf through mating or service contracts." "I've been serving," I protested. "I work every day. I earn my place." As a kitchen servant, Bryn's expression was genuinely sad. "That's not the same as being packed. You know that." I did know that. I'd known it for 3 years, ever since my 16th birthday came and went without the transformation that should have defined me. I'd known it every time a pack member looked through me instead of at me. Every time my own parents introduced Delilah as their daughter, and me as, well, nothing at all. "What do you think they'll decide?" I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. Bryn hesitated. "I think you should prepare yourself for exile." The word hung in the air between us like a death sentence. Exile. Being cast out from the only home I'd ever known. Stripped of pack protection and sent into rogue territory to fend for myself as a human among predators. It was a slow death sentence. Everyone knew that. "They wouldn't," I whispered. "My father is Beta. My mother." "Your mother has been pushing for this since your 17th birthday," Bryn interrupted gently. "I've heard her talking to the other high-ranking females. She's ashamed, Ravenna. She wants you gone so Delilah's prospects aren't damaged by association with a defective sister." Each word landed like a physical blow. I'd suspected, of course. The way my mother hadn't spoken directly to me in over a year. The way she introduced Delilah to visiting packs and conveniently forgot to mention she had another daughter. The way she looked at me with something approaching disgust whenever we happened to cross paths. But hearing it confirmed, hearing that my own mother was actively working to have me exiled, that was different. "Get back to work," Mistress Kara's voice cracked across the kitchen like a whip. "This isn't a social club. Ravenna, those potatoes should be peeled by now." I bent my head and returned to my task, my hands moving mechanically while my mind raced. Tonight. They were going to exile me tonight. 19 years I'd lived in this pack. 19 years of trying to be useful, to be good, to earn my place despite the wolf that never came. And it all ended tonight. The morning blurred into the afternoon. I served meals I couldn't taste. I washed dishes until my hands were raw. I kept my head down and my mouth shut, the way I'd learned to do over 3 years of being less than nothing. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and blood red, I felt a familiar presence behind me. "Hello, sister." I didn't need to turn around to know it was Delilah. Her voice was honey-sweet, the kind of sweet that masked poison. "Delilah." I kept scrubbing the pot in my hands, focusing on the stubborn bits of burnt food clinging to the bottom. "Happy birthday," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. 19. Such an important age. The age when everything becomes final. "What do you want?" I asked tiredly. "I wanted to see you before tonight's assembly." Delilah moved to lean against the counter beside me, her golden hair catching the light from the window. She was beautiful, everyone said so. Perfect skin, perfect features, The kind of beauty that made males stumble over their words and females eye her with envy. I thought maybe we should talk. Sister to sister. We haven't been sisters for 3 years, I said flatly. Not since you told the entire pack that I was probably cursed. Maybe I was switched at birth with a human child. Did I say that? Delilah's laugh was light, airy. I don't remember. But Ravenna, you have to understand, people needed an explanation. How else were they supposed to make sense of the beta's daughter being wolfless? It was easier to believe you weren't really one of us. I am one of you, I said, finally turning to face her. We came from the same womb, the same bloodline. Just because my wolf didn't. Your wolf didn't come because you don't have one, Delilah interrupted, her brown eyes cold despite her sweet smile. You're human, Ravenna. It's time you accepted that. Is that what you'll tell the assembly tonight? I asked. When will they decide whether to exile me? Delilah's smile widened. Oh, I won't need to tell them anything. The evidence speaks for itself. She pushed off the counter, smoothing her expensive dress, the kind I'd never been allowed to wear. But I did come to offer you something. A kindness, for old time's sake. What kindness? There's a way you could stay, Delilah said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Even without a wolf. Father told me about it. Hope sparked in my chest despite myself. What way? A mating bond. Delilah studied her nails casually. If a wolf claimed you as their mate, you'd be protected under their status. You could stay in pack territory. I don't have a mate, I said slowly. I'm not a wolf enough to have a fat mate. Not a fated mate, obviously. Delilah rolled her eyes. But a chosen bond. Someone who would agree to claim you out of pity or other motivations. Who? I asked, suspicion creeping into my voice. Garrett. The name hit me like a slap. Garrett Blackthorn. A warrior in his 30s who'd been reprimanded twice for inappropriate behavior toward lower-ranking females. Who looked at and bonded she-wolves like they were meat. Who everyone knew had a taste for the powerless and vulnerable. No, I said immediately. No. Delilah raised an eyebrow. Ravenna, do you understand what exile means? You'll be alone in rogue territory. Humans. Defenseless. You'll be lucky to survive a week. I'd rather take my chances than bond myself to Garrett. How noble, Delilah said dryly. And how stupid. But it's your funeral. Or it will be, once the rogues find you. She turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. Oh, and Ravenna? Tonight at the assembly, try not to embarrass Mother more than you already have. At least attempt some dignity when they cast you out. Then she was gone, her laughter echoing down the hallway. I stood there, hands shaking, the pot forgotten in the sink behind me. Tonight. It was really happening tonight. And I had no way to stop it. The judgment circle was exactly what it sounded like. A massive circular arena carved into the stone at the heart of Stonecrest territory. Tiered seating rose on all sides, and at its center stood a raised platform where the Alpha and his council made their pronouncements. By the time the sun set, the entire pack had gathered. 300 wolves, all seated according to rank and status. The warriors and their families in the prime seating near the front. The craftsmen and merchants in the middle sections. The omegas and servants in the back. I was given a spot on the arena floor itself. Alone. Facing the assembled pack like a criminal awaiting sentencing. Alpha Thaddeus sat on his throne at the center of the platform, a massive male in his 50s with silver threading through his dark hair and eyes like chips of ice. Beside him sat my father, Marcus Ashmore, the pack beta. And beside my father sat my mother, Clara, her face carefully neutral as she looked anywhere but at me. Delilah stood with the other unmated females of high status, her golden hair braided in an elaborate crown. She caught my eye and smiled. Ravenna Ashmore. Alpha Thaddeus's voice boomed across the arena, silencing the murmuring crowd. You stand before this pack on the eve of your 19th birthday. 3 years have passed since you should have experienced your first shift. 3 years during which you have shown no signs of your wolf emerging. I stood silent. There was nothing to say. Everything he said was true. The ancient laws of our kind are clear, Thaddeus continued. Those who do not shift are not wolves. They are human. And humans cannot remain in pack territory without a bond of service or mating to a wolf member. Alpha Thaddeus, my father spoke up, and my heart lifted slightly. Maybe he would defend me. Maybe. I hope that we give Ravenna one final chance. The crowd erupted in whispers. Thaddeus raised a hand for silence. Speak, Beta Marcus. My father stood, and I searched his face for some sign of paternal affection. I found only a cold calculation. The Ashmore bloodline is strong. It's possible that Ravenna's wolf is simply dormant. Delayed. 3 years delayed? Someone in the crowd called out. That's unheard of. Nevertheless, my father continued, I propose we force the shift. Tonight. If her wolf exists, the trauma of a forced transformation should bring it forward. If it doesn't, he paused, looking at me for the first time. Then we'll have our answer, and exile will proceed without question. Horror crashed over me. Forced shifts were agonizing, the deliberate triggering of transformation through extreme pain and stress. They were used as punishment for the worst crimes, and many wolves didn't survive them. Father, please, I started. You will be silent, Thaddeus snapped. Beta Marcus, your proposal is noted. Council, what do you say? One by one, the council members voted. Yes, yes, yes. Every single one. Then it settled. Thaddeus stood, and the weight of his alpha authority pressed down on the entire arena. Ravenna Ashmore, you'll be subjected to forced transformation. If your wolf emerges, you will be granted full pack status and all questions of your worth will be answered. If no wolf emerges... He didn't need to finish. We all knew what came next. Strip commanded the head warrior, Magnus, stepping forward. He was a brutal male, scarred and vicious, who'd made his career breaking wolves who challenged pack law. Can't shift with clothes on, girl. My face burned with shame as I looked at the hundreds of faces watching me. Please, can I at least... Now! Magnus roared. With trembling hands, I removed my simple dress, standing in the center of the arena in only my undergarments. The night air was cold against my skin, raising goosebumps along my arms. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Cruel, mocking laughter at the sight of the cursed daughter brought low. Call your wolf, Thaddeus commanded, his voice carrying absolute authority. Pull her forward. Force the shift, or we'll force it for you. I closed my eyes and reached deep inside myself, to that place where every wolf kept their beast. I'd reached there thousands of times over the past 3 years, searching desperately for any sign of the wolf that should live within me. And every time, I'd found nothing. Just emptiness. A hollow space where something vital should have existed. I can't, I whispered. There's nothing there. Then we help, Magnus said, and nodded to 2 other warriors. They grabbed my arms, hauling me to my knees on the cold stone. And then the pain began. Wolves have ways of triggering shifts in those too young or too traumatized to do it themselves. Pressure points along the spine. Nerve clusters that, when pressed in specific ways, mimic the sensation of bones breaking and reforming. I screamed as they worked, tears streaming down my face as agony lanced through my body. Every instinct told me to shift, to let my wolf take over and make the pain stop. But there was no wolf to answer. The pain intensified. My vision blurred. I heard myself begging them to stop, and heard my voice breaking as I pleaded for mercy. And through it all, the pack watched. Some with pity, most with disgust. And my family, my father looked on with grim determination, my mother with relief that this embarrassment would soon be over, and Delilah was smiling. Enough. Thaddeus finally called, after what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. The girl has no wolf. She's human. The warriors released me and I collapsed on the stone, sobbing and broken. Ravenna Ashmore, Thaddeus pronounced, you are hereby declared human-born and are ordered to leave Stonecrest territory by dawn. You are stripped of pack name and pack protection. You are. The first crack of bone was so unexpected that Thaddeus stopped mid-sentence. I screamed as my spine began to curve, to lengthen, as something inside me that had been locked away finally shattered its cage. Impossible. I heard my father breathe. My hands twisted into paws, my face elongated into a muzzle, and fur erupted across my skin. But not the golden fur of Delilah's wolf. Not the brown or gray of normal pack wolves. Silver. Pure, luminous silver that seemed to glow in the torchlight. And as the transformation completed, as I stood on four legs for the first time in my life, I realized something that made the entire arena fall into shocked silence. I was massive, easily twice the size of an average wolf. My head came up to Magnus' chest, and he was considered one of the largest warriors in our pack. And my eyes, when I caught my reflection in the polished bronze shields mounted around the arena, my eyes were no longer violet. They were burning silver, like molten starlight. The silence lasted 3 heartbeats. Then chaos erupted. "The Wraith Luna," someone whispered, and the words spread through the crowd like wildfire. The ancient texts they spoke of this. "Seize her." Thaddeus roared, but his voice carried fear now instead of authority. "Get silver chains. She's too dangerous to." I didn't wait to hear the rest. My massive wolf form turned and ran, crashing through the arena barriers, scattering wolves who tried to stop me. I was faster than them, stronger than them, fueled by 19 years of suppressed rage and hurt. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to run. Behind me, I heard Delilah's voice, high and panicked. "She's the curse. I told you she was cursed. She'll destroy us all." And my mother, crying out, "Kill it. Kill that thing before it comes back." That thing. Not their daughter. Not their sister. A thing. I ran faster, my silver paws eating up ground as I fled into the forest beyond Stonecrest territory. Fled into the unknown. Fled from the family that had just tried to kill me. And in the back of my mind, I felt her. My wolf. The presence I'd searched for desperately for 3 years. Finally awake. Finally free. Finally furious. They said my wolf would never come. They were wrong. But now that she's here, massive, silver, and radiating power that makes even the alpha afraid, I'm starting to wonder if they were right about one thing. Maybe I am cursed. But whose curse is worse? Mine or theirs, for what they've just unleashed? What would you do if your family tried to kill the very thing that made you powerful? Would you run, or would you turn back and make them see what they'd created? Drop your thoughts below. I'm curious if you'd choose mercy or vengeance. Chapter 2. I ran until my lungs burned and my paws bled. The forest beyond Stonecrest territory was dark and wild, untamed by pack law or cultivated paths. Ancient trees rose like sentinels, their branches blocking out the moonlight and casting everything in shadow. Somewhere behind me, I could hear the howls of pursuit, warriors sent to track down the abomination that had emerged in their judgment circle. They called me the Wraith Luna. I didn't know what that meant, but I'd heard the terror in their voices when they said it. My wolf finally slowed as we reached a rocky outcrop overlooking a ravine. Water rushed somewhere below, the sound of a river cutting through stone. She was panting, exhausted from the shift and the frantic escape, but I could feel her presence in my mind now, clear and strong and absolutely livid. 3 years ago, she snarled in my head, her voice like silver bells and grinding stones all at once. 3 years you thought you were hollow. 3 years they tortured you, belittled you, made you believe you were less than nothing. Where were you? I gasped out loud, my wolf voice deeper and more resonant than I'd expected. Why didn't you come before? Why did you let them hurt me? I was locked away, my wolf said, and I felt her rage like a physical heat in my chest. Bound by magic I didn't understand. Someone wanted you weak, Ravenna. Someone wanted you to believe you were powerless until the moment they could destroy you completely. What do you mean, bound by magic? Who would? A branch snapped behind me. I spun, hackles rising, to find a figure stepping out from the shadows between the trees. Not a wolf in shifted form, but a man, tall and lean, with dark hair shot through with silver and eyes that reflected the dim moonlight like a predator's. "Easy," he said, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "I'm not here to hurt you." My wolf growled low in my throat, a sound that seemed to vibrate the very air around us. "Rogue," she identified.
"He's not packed."
"No scent markers." "Obviously I'm not pack," the stranger said dryly, and I realized he could hear my wolf's voice in my head, or at least sense her hostility. "If I was, you'd have already torn my throat out, judging by the mood you're in." "Stay back," I warned, my voice coming out as a rumbling growl. "I will, as soon as you shift back to human form and let me explain why I've been following you for the past 3 miles. He lowered his hands slowly. "My name is Kieran, and I know what you are." "Don't trust him," my wolf warned. "Rogues are dangerous. They have no pack loyalty, no law but their own survival." But something in the way he looked at me, not with fear or disgust, but with a kind of sad understanding, made me hesitate. "I don't know how to shift back," I admitted quietly. "This is my first time. I don't know how to control it." Kieran's expression softened slightly. "Of course you don't. They forced your shift, didn't they?" I could hear the screaming from 2 miles out. He moved slowly to a nearby fallen log and sat, deliberately making himself less threatening. "Shifting back is about letting go. You held on so tight to your wolf for so long, searching for her. Now you need to release that grip. Trust that she'll come when you call her again." "I don't like him," my wolf grumbled, but she was already responding to his words, already understanding the truth in them. I closed my eyes and tried to let go. It felt impossible. After finally finding my wolf, the thought of releasing her again terrified me. What if she disappeared? What if I became hollow again? "I'm not going anywhere," my wolf said gently, and for the first time since she'd emerged, I felt something other than rage from her. Something almost like affection. "I'm part of you, Ravenna. We're one now. You can't lose me." I exhaled and released my grip on the wolf form. The shift back was faster than the transformation had been, but it still hurt. Bones cracking and reforming, fur receding, body shrinking. When it was over, I was human again, naked and shivering on the cold stone. Kieran immediately turned away, shrugging off his worn leather jacket and tossing it to me without looking.
"Here."
"It's not much, but it's better than nothing." I caught the jacket and wrapped it around myself gratefully. It smelled like pine smoke and wild places, nothing like the controlled, cultivated sense of pack territory. "Thank you. Can I turn around now, or should I keep admiring this particularly fascinating tree?" Despite everything, I almost smiled. "You can turn around." Kieran faced me, and now that I could see him in human form with human eyes, I realized he was younger than I'd first thought. Maybe late 20s, with a lean, rangy build that spoke of a life lived on the move. His eyes were an unusual shade of amber gold, and there was a jagged scar running from his left temple down to his jaw.
"So," he said,
"The Wraith Luna. I honestly didn't think I'd see one in my lifetime." "Everyone keeps calling me that," I said, pulling the jacket tighter around myself. "What does it mean?" Kieran studied me for a long moment. "You really don't know?" "I don't know anything. Until tonight, I thought I was human, wolfless." The admission hurt even now. "And then they forced my shift, and this," I gestured at myself helplessly. "This is what came out. This thing that terrified everyone, including my own family." "You're not a thing," Kieran said firmly. "You're something ancient, something powerful. Something that appears once every 1,000 years when the balance between packs has become too corrupt." I stared at him. "What are you talking about?" "The Wraith Luna is a corrective force," Kieran explained, settling back on the log. "According to the old stories, when pack society becomes too brutal, too hierarchical, too willing to sacrifice the weak for the strong, the moon goddess sends a Wraith Luna. A wolf born without status or power, who lives among the lowest ranks and sees all the cruelty and corruption for what it is. And then, at the moment of their greatest suffering, their wolf awakens. Not as a normal wolf, but as something much more dangerous. How much more dangerous? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. The last Wraith Luna destroyed 7 packs before she was stopped, Kieran said quietly. Brought down entire hierarchies. Killed alphas who'd ruled for decades. She became a legend. The Silver Death, they called her. A cautionary tale about what happens when you push the powerless too far. My hands were shaking. And you think that's what I am? Some kind of weapon of mass destruction. I think you're someone who was hurt very badly by people who should have protected you, Kieran said. And I think your wolf is very, very angry about that. What you do with that anger, whether you let it consume you the way the last Wraith Luna did, or whether you find another path, that's up to you. I wanted to argue, to deny it all, but the memory of my mother's voice echoed in my mind. Kill it. Kill that thing before it comes back. They'll hunt me, I said hollowly. Stonecrest Pack. They won't let a Wraith Luna live near their territory. They're already hunting you, Kieran confirmed. I passed 3 search parties on my way here. They're coordinating with neighboring packs, spreading word that a dangerous rogue needs to be eliminated. Then I need to run farther. Get beyond their reach. There is no beyond their reach, Kieran interrupted. The Northern Territories are all connected. Every pack shares information, shares resources. If you run, they'll find you. If you hide, they'll sniff you out. Your only real option is to fight. Yes, my wolf agreed immediately. We go back. We show them what they created. No, I said aloud, to both of them. I'm not going back there. I'm not going to become the monster they think I am. Then what will you do?
Kieran asked.
Because doing nothing is also a choice. And it's one that will get you killed. Before I could answer, the sound of approaching paws made us both freeze. Many paws. Moving fast and deliberately through the forest, converging on our location. They've found us, Kieran said, standing smoothly. Can you shift again? Fight if you have to. I don't know, I admitted. I barely know how to shift at all, let alone fight in wolf form. Then I suggest you learn fast. Kieran began to back toward the edge of the ravine. Because I count at least 8 wolves headed our way, and they don't sound friendly. The first wolf burst through the underbrush, a massive brown male I recognized as Magnus, the head warrior who'd administered my force shift. His lips were pulled back in a snarl, and his eyes locked on me with murderous intent. Shift, my wolf urged. Now, Ravenna. Or we die here. I reached for her, and this time the shift came more easily. Still painful, still disorienting, but faster. My silver wolf form erupted from my human shape, and I felt power flooding through me, strength I'd never known existed. Magnus lunged, and I met him mid-leap. We collided in a tangle of fur and fangs, his weight and experience against my size and desperate fury. He went for my throat, but I twisted, catching his shoulder instead with my jaws. The taste of his blood filled my mouth, hot and coppery. Too strong, my wolf analyzed even as we fought. His wolf is older, trained. We can't match his skill. But we were bigger, faster, and fueled by 19 years of rage. I threw Magnus off, slamming him into a tree trunk hard enough to crack the bark. He yelped and scrambled to his feet, but before he could attack again, 7 more wolves emerged from the forest. I recognized them all. Warriors from Stonecrest. Wolves who'd watched me serve them food, clean their quarters, exist beneath their notice for years. Now they surrounded me, teeth bared, coordinating their attack with the practiced efficiency of wolves who'd trained together for decades. I was going to die here. Ravenna. Kieran's voice cut through the chaos. The ravine. Jump. I looked back at the rocky outcrop, at the darkness below where the river rushed unseen. It had to be a 50-foot drop, maybe more. The fall alone could kill me. Better than being torn apart, my wolf said grimly. The warriors charged as one. I turned and leaped into the darkness. The fall seemed to last forever, weightless, terrifying, the wind screaming past my ears. Then I hit the water, and the cold was so intense it drove the air from my lungs. The current caught me immediately, dragging me under, tumbling me over rocks and through rapids. My wolf form was too heavy, too awkward in the water. I needed to shift back, needed to swim, but I couldn't concentrate through the panic and the cold and the desperate need for air. "Let go," my wolf said. "Shift.
Trust me."
I shifted back to human form just as my head broke the surface. I gasped in a lungful of air before the current dragged me under again, but at least now I could swim, could fight the river's pull. The water carried me for what felt like miles, battering me against rocks, pulling me through rapids that should have killed me. By the time I finally managed to grab hold of an overhanging branch and haul myself onto the muddy bank, I was more bruised than skinned. I lay there gasping, shivering violently in the cold night air, Kieran's jacket long since lost to the river. "Well?" A familiar voice said from somewhere above me. That was dramatic. I looked up to find Kieran perched on a boulder, completely dry and apparently unharmed. "How did you?" "I didn't jump into a raging river," he said dryly. "I took the sensible route and ran along the bank until I found where you washed up." He slid down from the boulder and offered me a hand. "Can you stand?" I took his hand and let him pull me up, wrapping my arms around myself in a futile attempt to stop shaking. "They'll keep coming." "Yes," Kieran agreed.
"But you bought yourself some time."
"The river carried you across the border into neutral territory. Stonecrest warriors can't legally pursue you here without causing a diplomatic incident." "How long until they decide they don't care about diplomatic incidents?" Knowing pack politics? "About 3 days." Kieran shrugged off his second jacket. Apparently he traveled with spares, and wrapped it around my shoulders. "Which gives us 3 days to get you somewhere safe."
"Us."
I looked at him, suspiciously. "Why are you helping me? What do you want?" Honest answer? Kieran met my eyes. "I'm helping you because I know what it's like to be hunted by your own pack. Because I know what it's like to be cast out for something you didn't choose. And because..." He hesitated. "Because I think the Wraith Luna might be exactly what the Northern Territories need, even if they don't know it yet." "I'm not a weapon," I said quietly. "I'm not going to be your tool for revenge against the packs." "I don't want a weapon," Kieran said. "I want a chance. A chance for someone with real power to actually change things. To make the packs understand that strength isn't just about who can kill the fastest or rule the hardest." His amber eyes were intense. "The last Wraith Luna became a monster because everyone treated her like one. What if this time, someone helped instead? What if you became something different?" I wanted to believe him. Goddess help me, I wanted so badly to believe that I could be something other than the cursed daughter or the silver death. But trust was a luxury I couldn't afford anymore. "Where is this safe place?" I asked instead. 3 days north," Kieran said. "Beyond the territories controlled by the major packs. There's a settlement there, rogues, outcasts, wolves who've been exiled or who left their packs by choice. It's not much, but it's neutral ground. No pack law, no hierarchy. You be safe there while you figure out your next move." 3 days. 3 days of running, of looking over my shoulder, of learning to be a wolf while hunted by wolves. "We can do this," my wolf said. "We're stronger than they know. Stronger than they'll ever expect." "Okay," I said finally. 3 days. But after that, I make my own choices about what happens next." "Fair enough," Kieran agreed. He started walking north, and after a moment's hesitation, I followed. Behind us, in the distance, I heard howls. Stonecrest warriors, frustrated by losing my trail at the river. They'd be searching all night, coordinating with other packs, spreading the word about the dangerous Wraith Luna who needed to be destroyed. And somewhere in that pack, my family was probably celebrating their narrow escape from the monster they'd created. My mother, relieved that the embarrassment was gone. My father, calculating how to spin this to maintain his position as beta. And Delilah. "She knew," my wolf said suddenly. "Didn't you feel it? When we shifted, when the power came flooding out, there was a moment where the binding broke. And in that moment, I felt the signature of the magic that had locked me away." "What are you saying?" I asked aloud, earning a curious glance from Kieran. "I'm saying your sister knew you had a wolf," my wolf said, her voice cold with certainty. She knew, and she had someone bind me. Keep me locked away so you'd be declared wolfless and exiled. This wasn't an accident, Ravenna. This was deliberate. The pieces fell into place with horrible clarity. Delilah's constant needling about being cursed. Her convenient suggestions about mating with Garrett. Her satisfied smile when the Alpha announced my force shift. She'd orchestrated all of it. She'd stolen 3 years of my life, condemned me to exile or death, and smiled while doing it. Now do you want revenge? My wolf asked. I looked up at the stars breaking through the forest canopy, at the vast and dangerous world I'd been thrust into without preparation or allies. Ask me again in 3 days, I whispered. But we both already knew the answer. Kieran says the last Wraith Luna destroyed 7 packs before she was stopped. 7. And I'm supposed to be different? Better? When my own twin sister orchestrated my suffering for 3 years. Here's what I'm wrestling with. Is revenge justice, or does it just make you the monster they always said you were? If Delilah deliberately bound my wolf and tried to have me killed, does she deserve mercy? Chapter 3. The 3 days it took to reach the settlement were the hardest of my life. Not because of the physical journey, though trudging through wilderness with barely any clothes, no supplies, and only Kieran's sporadic hunting skills to keep us fed was brutal enough. No, the hardest part was learning to be a wolf while everything inside me screamed that I was still just Ravenna. Hollow. Worthless. The girl who didn't belong anywhere. My wolf disagreed. Violently. You need to stop thinking like prey, she snarled on the second night as I flinched away from a snapping branch. We're not prey anymore. We're the thing that hunts. I've spent 19 years being prey, I muttered, huddled near the small fire Kieran had built. You can't expect me to just flip a switch. Then practice. My wolf pushed against my consciousness, eager to emerge.
Shift.
Learn your body. Learn what we can do. She's right, you know, Kieran said from across the fire. He was sharpening a knife against a stone, the rhythmic scraping oddly soothing in the quiet forest. You can't keep living in fear of your own power. Sooner or later, someone's going to push you, and you'll either fight back or die. Better to be ready. I don't want to fight, I said tiredly. I just want to survive. Those aren't mutually exclusive. In fact, out here, they're pretty much the same thing. Kieran looked up from his blade, amber eyes reflecting the firelight. How much do you know about how packs work? The real politics, I mean, not the public ceremonies and official rules. Not much, I admitted. I was kept away from anything important. Kitchen work doesn't come with political briefings. Then let me educate you, Kieran said, setting aside his knife. The Northern Territories are controlled by 5 major packs. Stonecrest, your former pack, is the smallest but strategically positioned near the mountain passes. Then there's Ironmoor to the east, Shadowfen to the west, Highcrest north, and Bloodmark south.
I've heard of them, I said.
Traders from other packs would come through sometimes. What you probably didn't hear is that those 5 packs are in a constant Cold War, Kieran continued, fighting for resources, territory, influence. And the way they maintain power is through rigid hierarchy. Alphas at the top, then betas, then warriors, and everyone else ranked by strength and bloodline. Anyone who can't fight or who shows weakness gets shoved to the bottom, or cast out entirely. Like me, I thought bitterly. The system works because everyone believes in it, Kieran said. Everyone accepts that strength equals worth. That if you're not a fighter or a breeder or useful to the pack's survival, you're expendable. He leaned forward. But the Wraith Luna threatens all of that. Because you're proof that the lowest-ranked wolf, the one everyone dismissed as worthless, can have more power than any alpha. You're a living contradiction to everything their society is built on. So they'll destroy me to protect their hierarchy, I said. They'll try, Kieran agreed. Which is why you need to learn to protect yourself. Starting with controlling your shift. I looked down at my hands, still bruised and scraped from the river. What if I can't? What if I'm just broken in a different way now? You're not broken, my wolf said fiercely. You're waking up. There's a difference. Kieran stood and gestured to the space beside the fire. Come on. On your feet. We're going to practice. Now? It's the middle of the night. Best time for it. No one is around to see if you mess up. He waited until I reluctantly stood, then moved to stand behind me. Close your eyes. Feel where your wolf sits in your consciousness. I did as he instructed, reaching inward to that place where my wolf's presence burned like cold fire. She was always there now, always watching, always waiting. Good, Kieran said. Now, instead of grabbing for her the way you did during the forced shift, try asking. Try partnering with her. Finally, my wolf said, someone who understands. I took a breath and mentally extended an invitation.
Can we shift?
Together this time? The transformation that followed was nothing like the agonizing force shift or the desperate panic shift at the ravine. This was collaborative. My bones knew where to go. My muscles understood how to change. My wolf guided me through it like a dance we'd practiced 1,000 times. When I opened my silver eyes, I was standing on 4 legs, and it had barely hurt at all. Better, Kieran said, and I realized he'd shifted too, a lean gray wolf with those same amber eyes. His voice in my head was clear and strong. Much better. Now try shifting back. Same principle. Ask, don't force. I did, and the return to human form was equally smooth. Holy shit! I breathed, staring at my hands. That was you actually working with your wolf instead of fighting her, Kieran said, having shifted back as well. Do it again. Keep practicing until it's second nature. We spent the next hour shifting back and forth. By the end of it, I was exhausted but exhilarated. The transformations were getting faster, cleaner, and almost effortless. Why didn't anyone teach me this before? I asked as we settled back by the fire. If I'd known it could be like this. They didn't teach you because they didn't want you to succeed, Kieran said bluntly. Your forced shift wasn't about bringing out your wolf. It was about proving you didn't have one. They set you up to fail. The truth of it settled over me like a weight. Of course they had. My father, the pack, probably even Delilah, they'd all wanted me to fail. Needed me to fail, so they could exile the embarrassment without guilt. And when we didn't fail, my wolf said darkly, they tried to kill us instead. Get some sleep, Kieran said, rolling himself into his bedroll. We've got one more day of travel, and the last stretch is the hardest. We'll be crossing through Ironmore's outer territory, and their patrols don't look kindly on trespassers. Then why are we going that way? Because it's the only way to reach the settlement without adding another week to the journey. Kieran closed his eyes. Don't worry. I've done this route before. We'll be fine as long as we're quiet and quick. I wanted to believe him. But as I lay down on the hard ground, wrapped in Kieran's spare jacket, I couldn't shake the feeling that nothing about my life was going to be fine ever again. The settlement Kieran had promised turned out to be less of a settlement and more of a collection of ramshackle structures clinging to the side of a rocky hillside. Maybe 30 buildings total, if you were generous with the definition of building. Some were little more than lean-tos made of scavenged wood and canvas. Welcome to Haven, Kieran announced as we crested the final hill and looked down at the sorry sight. It's not much, but it's home to about 200 rogues who've got nowhere else to go. I searched for a polite word. Rustic. It's a shithole, Kieran said cheerfully. But it's our shithole, and pack wolves can't touch us here. Neutral ground, remember? As we descended into the settlement, I became aware of eyes watching us from windows and doorways. Rogues emerged from their homes, wolves of all ages and conditions, their common thread being a wariness that spoke of hard lives and harder choices. Kieran, a young woman with short-cropped black hair and scars crossing her face, jogged up to us. You're back. We were starting to think Stonecrest had finally caught you. Tried to, Kieran said with a grin. Failed spectacularly, as usual. Zara, this is Ravenna.
Ravenna? Zara.
She runs what passes for security around here. Zara's dark eyes assessed me with the intensity of a predator sizing up potential prey. You brought a stray? I brought someone who needs shelter, Kieran corrected. Long story. Is Matthias around? In his workshop. Probably drunk. Zara kept staring at me. She's got strange eyes. Violet, I've never seen that before. They're silver when she shifts, Kieran said casually. Every rogue within earshot went still. Silver, Zara repeated slowly. As in Wraith Luna silver, Kieran confirmed. Which is why she needs somewhere safe to stay while half the Northern Territories tries to hunt her down. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Some rogues backed away, hands instinctively moving to weapons. Others leaned forward with predatory interest. And a very few looked at me with something approaching hope. You brought a Wraith Luna here? Zara demanded. Are you insane? Do you know what the Packs will do if they find out we're harboring her? The Packs don't give a shit about Haven, Kieran said firmly. We're beneath their notice, remember? Just a bunch of broken rogues, not worth the effort of wiping out. That changes if we're protecting someone they want dead. Zara gestured at me. The last Wraith Luna killed hundreds of wolves. Destroyed entire pack hierarchies. They'll raze this place to the ground if they think we're helping her. Then we don't let them find out, Kieran said. Come on, Zara. When have we ever turned away someone who needed help? That's what Haven is for. Zara looked torn between duty and friendship. Finally, she sighed. Matthias is going to love this.
Come on.
Let's get her settled before word spreads, and we have a panic on our hands. She led us through the winding paths between structures, rogues whispering and pointing as we passed. I kept my head down, acutely aware of being studied, judged, feared. Let them fear, my wolf said. Better fear than pity. We reached a building that was slightly sturdier than the others, actual walls, a real roof, windows with glass instead of canvas. Zara pushed open the door without knocking, revealing a cluttered workshop filled with tools, mechanical parts, and a thin man with graying hair hunched over a workbench. Matthias, Zara said. We have a situation. The man looked up, and I saw that one of his eyes was clouded with blindness, a scar running through it. We always have a situation. Which crisis is it this time? Kieran brought home a Wraith Luna. Matthias's good eye fixed on me, and I felt the weight of his assessment. Unlike Zara's hostile evaluation, this felt more analytical. Curious. Interesting, he said finally. I didn't think I'd see another one before I died. How old are you, girl? 19, I said quietly. And you just shifted for the first time? 4 days ago. It was forced. Understanding flickered across Matthias's scarred face. They tried to prove you were wolfless. Instead, they triggered something they couldn't control. He stood slowly, leaning on a cane. Classic pack stupidity. Never learn, do they? Can she stay?
Kieran asked.
Just until she figures out her next move? Matthias studied me for a long moment. Can you work? Earn your keep? I've been working since I was old enough to hold a broom, I said. Kitchen staff. Cleaning. Whatever needs doing. I'm not afraid of hard work.
Good.
Because we don't carry dead weight in Haven. Matthias gestured to Zara. Set her up in one of the empty cabins. East side, away from the main population. I don't want panic to spread if someone recognizes what she is. Thank you, I said, relief flooding through me. Don't thank me yet, Matthias said. You're going to earn that cabin. And more importantly, you're going to learn to control that power before it controls you. His one good eye narrowed. The last Wraith Luna started out just like you, scared, running, trying to hide from what she was. By the end, she'd become the monster they accused her of being. I won't let that happen here. Understood. Understood, I said. Zara led me out of the workshop and through more winding paths to the eastern edge of the settlement. The cabin she showed me was tiny, one room with a cot, a small table, and a wood stove in the corner. But it had 4 walls and a locked door. It was more privacy than I'd had in 3 years. Rules, Zara said as I stood in the doorway. No shifting within settlement boundaries unless it's an emergency. No stealing from other rogues. No starting fights. And absolutely no contact with pack wolves without clearing it through Matthias first. She crossed her arms. Break any of those rules and you're out. Clear?
Clear, I said.
Good. Zara's expression softened slightly. Look, I don't know your story, and I don't need to. Everyone here is running from something. But this place works because we trust each other to follow the rules. Don't make me regret giving you a chance. I won't, I promised. After Zara left, I sat on the cot and looked around my new home. It was sparse.
Cold.
Nothing like the storage room I'd lived in at Stonecrest, and nothing like the bedroom I'd had before I turned 16 and my life fell apart. But it was mine. We're safe, my wolf said, and I felt her settling into a watchful rest in the back of my mind.
For now. For now.
That was all I could ask for. A knock at the door made me jump. I opened it to find Kieran standing there with a bundle of clothes and a plate of food. Thought you might need these, he said, offering both. The clothes are donations from the community stores. They'll be too big, but better than wearing my jacket forever. Thank you, I said, taking the offerings. The food was simple, bread, cheese, some kind of stew, but it smelled amazing. For everything. I don't know why you're helping me, but thank you. Kieran shrugged. I told you. I know what it's like to be cast out. My pack exiled me 5 years ago for challenging an unjust alpha order. I've been rogue ever since. He leaned against the doorframe. Besides, I meant what I said. I think you could be something different. Something better than what the packs expect. What if I can't be? I asked quietly. What if I'm just broken in a new way? Then you figure out how to be broken and powerful at the same time, Kieran said. Being damaged doesn't make you weak, Ravenna. Sometimes it makes you stronger because you know exactly what you're fighting against. He left before I could respond, disappearing into the growing darkness as the settlement's few lights began to flicker on. I closed the door and sat on the cot, eating the stew slowly, savoring each bite. Outside, I could hear the sounds of Haven settling in for the night, voices, laughter, the occasional howl of a wolf greeting the rising moon. For the first time in 4 days, I felt something approaching safety. Don't get comfortable, my wolf warned. Safe is an illusion. Especially for us. Let me have this, I whispered. Just for tonight. Let me pretend we've found somewhere we can stay. My wolf didn't argue. She knew as well as I did that this peace was temporary. Because somewhere out there, the Stonecrest Pack was hunting us. Delilah was probably celebrating her victory. And the other packs were spreading the word about a dangerous Wraith Luna who needed to be eliminated. The Northern Territories wanted me dead. And I was tired of running. But I was also tired of fighting. So what did that leave? I lay back on the cot, staring at the rough wooden ceiling, and tried not to think about the impossible choice ahead of me. Run and spend my life looking over my shoulder. Fight and become the monster they claimed I was. Or find a third option, one that didn't end with me dead or damned. We'll find a way, my wolf said with more confidence than I felt. We always do. I closed my eyes and let exhaustion pull me under, hoping she was right. Hoping that somewhere in this mess, there was a path that led to something other than death or destruction. But in my dreams, I saw Delilah smile. I heard my mother's voice calling me, felt the shadow chains of my bound wolf wrapping around me again. And when I woke in the dark hours before dawn, I knew the truth. I wasn't done with the Stonecrest Pack. And they definitely weren't done with me. So here I am in Haven, a rogue settlement full of outcasts and broken wolves. It's not home, but it's safe. For now. Kieran thinks I can be something different than the last Wraith Luna. Something better. But every time I close my eyes, I see Delilah's face. I feel the 3 years she stole from me. And I wonder, is wanting justice the same as wanting revenge? Because right now they feel like the exact same thing. Chapter 4. I woke to someone pounding on my cabin door. The sun was barely up, gray dawn light filtering through the single window, and my body ached from sleeping on the thin cot. For a disoriented moment, I thought I was back in the storage room at Stonecrest, about to be yelled at by Mistress Kara for being late to kitchen duty. Then reality crashed back. Haven.
Rogues.
Wraith Luna. Running for my life. The pounding continued. I'm coming, I called, stumbling to the door and yanking it open. Zara stood there, already dressed in worn leather armor, 2 wooden practice swords strapped to her back.
Get dressed.
You've got 5 minutes. For what? I asked, still fuzzy with sleep. Training. Zara's expression was all business. Matthias's orders. If you're going to stay in Haven, you need to learn to defend yourself. That means daily training sessions starting now.
Now?
It's barely dawn. Dawn is when warriors train, Zara said flatly. You want to survive out here. You train like a warrior. 5 minutes. Meet me at the Eastern Clearing. Don't be late. She left before I could argue. I dressed quickly in the donated clothes, pants that were too long and a shirt that hung off one shoulder, and braided my hair back to keep it out of my face. My violet eyes stared back at me from the cracked mirror someone had left propped against the wall, and I barely recognized myself. 4 days ago, I went to the Hollow One, the worthless daughter who couldn't shift. Now, I was something else entirely. Something dangerous. Something powerful, my wolf corrected. Stop apologizing for existing. I found the Eastern Clearing after getting lost twice, and asking a bleary-eyed rogue for directions. It was a flat space cleared of trees, the ground packed hard from use. Zara was already there, stretching with the fluid grace of someone who'd trained for combat her entire life. You're late, she said without looking at me. That's 20 push-ups. I got lost. 30 now. Keep talking, and it'll be 40. I dropped to the ground and started doing push-ups, my arms shaking by the 15th one. I'd never been strong. 3 years of kitchen work had kept me lean, but not muscled. By the time I hit 30, I collapsed face first into the dirt. Pathetic, Zara said conversationally. But expected. You've been treated like a servant for years. Your body doesn't know how to fight. She hauled me to my feet with surprising strength. That changes now. In Haven, everyone fights. Everyone protects the settlement. You don't get to hide in the kitchens anymore. She tossed me one of the wooden practice swords. I caught it awkwardly, nearly dropping it. Have you ever held a weapon before? Zara asked. Kitchen knives, I said.
Great.
So you know which end is sharp. Zara drew her own practice sword and took up a fighting stance. Lesson 1. Footwork. You can have all the strength in the world, but if your stance is wrong, you'll get knocked on your ass. Like this. She demonstrated a basic combat stance, feet shoulder-width apart, knees slightly bent, weight balanced. I tried to copy her and immediately felt off balance. No. Zara moved behind me and physically adjusted my posture, shoving my feet wider, straightening my back. You're hunching like prey. Stand like a predator. You're not the weak little kitchen girl anymore, Ravenna. You're a Wraith Luna. Act like it. Yes, my wolf agreed. Show her what we are. I straightened my spine and widened my stance, and something clicked into place. The position felt more stable, more grounded. Better, Zara said. Now, basic strike. Overhead swing. Aiming for my left shoulder. Put your body into it. I swung the practice sword. Zara blocked it effortlessly, and the impact jarred my arms so hard I nearly dropped the weapon. Again, she commanded. I swung again. And again. And again. For the next hour, Zara drilled me on basic sword work, strikes, blocks, footwork, stance. By the time she finally called a break, I was drenched in sweat and shaking with exhaustion. You're weak, Zara said, tossing me a water skin. But you're not hopeless. You've got good instincts, you just don't trust them yet. I've never fought before, I said between gulps of water. I've never even watched combat training up close. In Stonecrest, servants weren't allowed near the warrior grounds. Of course they weren't. Zara sat on a fallen log, studying me. Packs keep their hierarchies rigid by controlling who gets training and who doesn't. Can't have the servants learning to fight back, can we? Is that what happened to you? I asked. Did your pack cast you out for fighting back? Zara's expression hardened. My pack cast me out for killing the beta's son when he tried to force a mating bond on me. Self-defense doesn't matter when you're low-ranked and your attacker is highborn. She touched the scars on her face absently. I got these by defending myself. Then I got exiled for daring to survive. I'm sorry, I said quietly. Don't be sorry. Be angry. Zara stood and picked up her practice sword again. The pack system is broken, Ravenna. It's built on the idea that some wolves are worth more than others based on nothing but bloodline and strength. And the Wraith Luna, whether you want the title or not, you're proof that the system is bullshit.
How?
Because you were ranked lowest, treated like garbage, declared worthless. Zara smiled, sharp and fierce. And now you're more powerful than any of them. You're their worst nightmare, proof that the wolf they threw away could have been their greatest asset. That's why they want you dead. Not because you're dangerous to their safety, but because you're dangerous to their entire worldview. The words settled over me like a revelation. All this time, I thought the packs feared my power. But Zara was right. They feared what my existence represented. The collapse of everything they believed about strength and worth and hierarchy. Come on, Zara said. 1 more hour, then you're free until tomorrow morning. And Ravenna? She waited until I met her eyes. Train hard. Get strong. Because sooner or later, your old pack is going to find you. And when they do, you need to be ready to show them exactly what they threw away. The routine continued for days. Every morning, I trained with Zara until my muscles screamed and my hands were covered in blisters from gripping the practice sword. Every afternoon, I worked around Haven, hauling water, repairing buildings, helping with food preparation. Every evening, I collapsed into my cot, too exhausted to dream. And slowly something changed. My body grew stronger. The practice sword that had felt impossibly heavy on the first day became manageable. My footwork improved. My strikes landed with more accuracy and power. But more than the physical changes, something shifted inside me. The voice in my head that whispered worthless, hollow, mistake. It grew quieter with each passing day. We are not hollow. My wolf would remind me whenever doubt crept in. We were never hollow. We were just waiting. On the 10th day in Haven, Matthias summoned me to his workshop. I found him bent over a peculiar contraption made of metal and crystal, muttering to himself in frustration. He looked up when I entered, his one good eye focusing on me with that same analytical intensity. Sit, he commanded, gesturing to a stool. I sat, watching as he abandoned his project and pulled out a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed with age. What do you know about the Wraith Luna? Matthias asked without preamble. Only what Kieran told me, I said. That I'm a second one in 1,000 years. The last one destroyed 7 packs before she was killed. That I'm supposed to be some kind of corrective force against pack corruption. All true, Matthias said, but incomplete. He opened the journal, revealing pages covered in cramped handwriting and strange diagrams. I've spent 20 years researching the Wraith Luna phenomenon, collecting stories, interviewing elders who remembered the last one, trying to understand what makes you different from normal wolves. And I asked, both curious and apprehensive. And I've learned that the Wraith Luna isn't just powerful, she's specifically powerful. Matthias pointed to a diagram showing a wolf surrounded by concentric circles. Normal wolves have one gift: speed or strength or healing. Alphas have authority, the ability to command obedience through will alone. But the Wraith Luna has something else entirely. What? Empathy, Matthias said. The ability to sense and influence emotions. To feel what other wolves feel. To understand their pain and fear and rage. And, in extreme cases, to manipulate those emotions. I stared at him. I don't have that ability. Don't you? Matthias raised an eyebrow. Tell me, when you're around other wolves, do you ever feel their emotions bleeding into yours? Do you know when someone's lying or afraid or hostile before they show it? I thought about it. About how I'd always known when Delilah was planning something cruel, even before she acted. How I'd sensed Magnus' murderous intent before he attacked at the ravine. How I could feel Zara's buried pain beneath her tough exterior. Oh, goddess, I whispered. I thought that was just intuition. It's more than intuition, Matthias said. It's your gift. And it's why the Wraith Luna is so dangerous to pack hierarchies. Because she can feel the suffering of the lowest ranked wolves. She knows on a visceral level exactly how broken the system is. And eventually, that knowledge becomes unbearable. So she destroys the system. I finished quietly, like the last one did.
Yes.
But here's what the stories don't tell you. Matthias leaned forward. The last Wraith Luna didn't start out wanting to destroy packs. She started out wanting to fix them, to make the alphas understand, to create change through reason and negotiation. What happened? They refused to listen, dismissed her concerns, told her she was being emotional and irrational. Matthias's expression was grim. So she stopped trying to convince them with words and started convincing them with blood. She became exactly what they accused her of being, a monster. And by the time she was finally killed, she'd proven their point for them. That's what they're expecting from me? I said. They're waiting for me to become the monster. Which is why you need to learn control, Matthias said. Not just of your shift, but of your empathy. If you can't shield yourself from others' emotions, you'll drown in them. You'll feel every bit of suffering in the Northern Territories, and it will drive you mad. How do I learn to shield? Practice. Matthias pulled out a small crystal on a chain. This is an emotional amplifier. It'll make you more sensitive to nearby wolves' feelings. You're going to wear it and learn to filter out the noise. He placed the crystal around my neck, and immediately I was slammed with a wave of emotion. Matthias's weary determination. Outside the workshop, the settlement buzzed with hundreds of overlapping feelings: fear, anger, hope, despair, loneliness. I gasped, clutching the edge of the table. It's too much. Then learn to make it less, Matthias said firmly. Build walls in your mind. Imagine barriers between yourself and others. You control what you let in, Ravenna, not the other way around. I tried to do what he said, visualizing walls rising in my consciousness. Slowly, painfully, the flood of emotions began to recede. Not disappearing entirely, but becoming manageable. Better, Matthias said. You'll wear that crystal every day until you can maintain your shields without effort. It'll be uncomfortable, probably painful at times, but it's necessary. Why are you helping me? I asked. You don't know me. I could become exactly what they fear. I'm helping you because I knew the last Wraith Luna, Matthias said quietly. Before she became a monster, she was my sister. The revelation hit like a physical blow. Your sister? Her name was Saren. She was kind, compassionate, and desperate to make the world better. Matthias's voice was heavy with old grief. I watched her try everything to convince the packs to change. And I watched them break her, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but rage. He met my eyes. I couldn't save her, but maybe I can help you avoid her fate. I'm not going to let myself become like that, I said. Every Wraith Luna says that at the beginning, Matthias said. Let's see if you can actually mean it. He dismissed me after that, and I walked back to my cabin with the crystal heavy around my neck and emotions pressing against my newly constructed mental shields. He's testing us, my wolf observed. Seeing if we're strong enough to handle the truth. Are we? I asked. We have to be, my wolf said simply. Because if we fail, we become exactly what they fear. And then everything, Haven, Kieran's faith, Matthias's hope, all of it was for nothing. I touched the crystal, feeling it pulse with amplified emotion, and made a silent vow. I would learn control. I would master this power. And I would prove that a Wraith Luna could be something other than destruction incarnate, even if I had no idea how. That night, I dreamed of silver wolves and blood-soaked ground. I dreamed of Delilah smiling while pack wolves tore me apart. I dreamed of my mother's voice calling me things over and over until the word lost all meaning. And in the dream, I heard another voice. Older. Sadder. Familiar somehow. They'll never accept you, the voice whispered. Never see you as anything but a threat. So why keep trying? Why not show them what real power looks like? Because I'm not you, I said to the voice, to Saren's ghost. I'm not going to let them make me into a monster. We all say that, Saren's voice replied. Until the day we don't. I woke up gasping, the crystal burning cold against my chest. Outside my window, the first hints of dawn were breaking over Haven's ramshackle buildings. Another day. Another chance to prove I was different. Another step closer to whatever fate awaited the second Wraith Luna in 1,000 years. I just hoped it would be different from the first. Matthias told me his sister was the last Wraith Luna, the one who destroyed 7 packs before they killed her. He says she started out wanting to fix the system, to make things better. But they broke her until there was nothing left but rage. I'm wearing a crystal that amplifies emotions, learning to shield myself from feeling everyone's pain. Because if I don't learn control, I'll drown in the suffering of every mistreated wolf in the Northern Territories. And here's what terrifies me. Part of me wants to drown in it. Part of me wants to feel every ounce of injustice, so I have justification for burning it all down. Is that the Wraith Luna in me? Or is that just me? The girl who spent 19 years being crushed by a system that valued her at nothing? Chapter 5. 3 weeks into my stay at Haven, I stopped flinching when other rogues passed me in the narrow paths between buildings. Small progress, maybe, but progress nonetheless. My training with Zara had evolved from basic sword work to actual sparring. I still lost every match, sometimes spectacularly, but I was learning. My body was changing, lean muscle replacing the soft weakness of years spent hunched over kitchen sinks. The blisters on my hands had become calluses. The exhaustion that used to floor me after an hour of training now took 3 hours to achieve. And the crystal Matthias had given me, the one that amplified emotions, was becoming easier to bear. I'd learned to construct mental shields that kept out the worst of the emotional noise, though maintaining them required constant concentration. You're getting stronger, my wolf observed as I walked through Haven's Central Square, heading toward Matthias's workshop for another research session. But you're still holding back. Holding back from what? I muttered under my breath. From embracing what we are. You train with wooden swords when you could be training in wolf form. You shield against emotions when you could be learning to use them as weapons. You're still trying to be small. I'm trying to be controlled. I corrected. There's a difference. Is there? Before I could argue further, a commotion near the settlement's southern entrance caught my attention. Raised voices. The metallic scrape of weapons being drawn. The sharp, aggressive scent of unfamiliar wolves. I changed direction, joining the crowd of rogues gathering to see what was happening. At the entrance stood 3 wolves in human form, 2 males and a female, all wearing the dark leather armor that marked them as warriors from one of the major packs. The Crimson Wolf's head emblem on their chest plates identified them as Bloodmark Pack Scouts. And they were arguing with Zara. Don't care about your neutral ground policies, the lead male was saying, his voice carrying the arrogant authority of someone used to being obeyed. He was large, heavily muscled, with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow. We're tracking a dangerous rogue. A Wraith Luna. Intelligence suggests she fled in this direction. My blood turned to ice. Haven doesn't harbor fugitives, Zara said firmly, though I could see the tension in her shoulders. And we certainly don't answer to pack scouts who storm in here making demands. You'll answer to whoever we tell you to answer to, the female warrior said. She was lean and deadly looking, with cold gray eyes that swept the gathered crowd like a predator searching for weakness. Unless you want Bloodmark declaring the settlement hostile territory? Murmurs rippled through the watching rogues. Hostile territory meant no protection. It meant pack wolves could attack Haven without consequence, could hunt rogues for sport or capture them for forced labor. It meant Haven would be destroyed. We need to leave, my wolf said urgently. Now, before they recognize us. But I was frozen, watching Zara stand her ground despite being outnumbered and outmatched. You have no authority here, Zara said, her hand resting on the sword at her hip. Bloodmark's territory ends 5 miles south. You're trespassing on neutral ground. Neutral ground that's harboring a threat to all packs, the lead male said. Stand aside, rogue. We're going to search this settlement whether you cooperate or not. You really won't. Matthias's voice cut through the tension like a blade. The old wolf emerged from the crowd, leaning heavily on his cane, his scarred face showing no fear despite the obvious danger. Because if you take one step into Haven without permission, I'll send word to every pack in the Northern Territories that Bloodmark violated neutral ground. And you know what happens then. The lead warrior's jaw clenched. What happens is we hunt down the Wraith Luna before she slaughters hundreds of wolves like the last one did. The last Wraith Luna was provoked, Matthias said quietly, and I heard the grief beneath his words. She was hunted, tortured, driven to madness by packs who refused to see her as anything but a monster. She became what you made her. She became a murderer. The female warrior spat. And this new one will do the same unless we stop her first. You don't even know if she's here, Zara argued. We know she headed north after escaping Stonecrest, the lead male said. We know she's untrained and desperate. This settlement is the only refuge for miles. Of course she's here. They're going to search, my wolf said. And when they find us, Haven will be destroyed for harboring us. Everyone here will suffer because of us. She was right. I couldn't let that happen. Couldn't let Matthias and Zara and Kieran and all the other rogues who'd shown me kindness pay the price for protecting me. I stepped forward before I could talk myself out of it. I'm here, I said clearly, and the entire crowd went silent. Every eye turned to me. The Bloodmark warriors' hands went immediately to their weapons. Ravenna, no, Zara started. I'm the Wraith Luna you're looking for, I continued, moving through the crowd until I stood face to face with the lead warrior. Up close, I could see the fear beneath his bravado. Could feel it radiating from him like heat from a forge, terror of what I might be, of what I might do. I'm here. Now, leave Haven alone. The lead warrior studied me, his hand still on his sword hilt. You're coming with us. Bloodmark Alpha wants to question you about your intentions in the Northern Territories. Question me? I almost laughed. You mean execute me? That depends on whether you're a threat, the female warrior said. Cooperate, and maybe you'll survive this. Lies, my wolf snarled. They plan to kill us regardless. I can taste their intent.
I knew she was right.
Could feel it myself through the emotional amplification crystal, their determination to eliminate me, their certainty that I was already guilty. I'm not going anywhere with you, I said. The lead warrior's expression hardened. Then we'll take you by force. He lunged, faster than I expected, his hand closing around my wrist with bruising strength. And the moment his skin touched mine, my empathic ability exploded outward. I felt everything he felt, not just surface emotions, but deep, visceral memories. His alpha commands him to bring back the Wraith Luna dead or alive. His fear that failure would cost him his rank. His buried guilt about the innocent rogues his pack had killed during previous hunts. His certainty that violence was the only answer because it was all he'd ever been taught. And beneath all of it, a child, small and terrified, being beaten for showing weakness. Being told again and again that mercy was for the weak and only the strong deserved to survive. The rush of his trauma and pain slammed into me so hard I gasped. But along with his emotions came something else. The awareness that I could push back, could send my own emotions flooding into him, overwhelming his consciousness with feelings that weren't his own. I could make him feel what I'd felt. 19 years of being worthless. 3 years of being hollow. The soul-deep agony of being rejected by everyone who should have loved me. Do it, my wolf urged. Show him what he's done to others. Make him understand. My power surged, ready to drown him in empathic feedback.
But then I saw Matthias watching me.
Saw the test in his one good eye. The question, will you use your power to harm or to heal? I yanked my wrist free and staggered backward, severing the connection. The warrior stumbled, looking shaken. What did you just? I didn't hurt you, I said, my voice trembling. I could have made you feel things that would break your mind, but I didn't. Ravenna. Kieran's voice came from somewhere in the crowd. Don't do this. I have to, I said, still facing the Bloodmark warriors. I won't let Haven suffer because of me, but I'm not going with you to be executed for crimes I haven't committed. Then what do you suggest? the lead warrior asked, his hand still on his sword, but his expression more uncertain now. He'd felt a fraction of my power. Knew I could destroy him, if I chose to. A trial, I said. A real trial, with representatives from all 5 major packs. Let them judge me based on my actions, not their fears. If they find me guilty of being a threat, I'll accept their judgment. But if they can't prove I've done anything wrong, they leave me alone. The female warrior laughed harshly. You think any pack will agree to that? You think they'll let a Wraith Luna live just because she hasn't killed anyone yet? I think they'll have to, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. Because the alternative is me going rogue for real. Me deciding that if they're going to hunt me anyway, I might as well give them a reason. And trust me, you don't want that. It wasn't a threat exactly. More like a statement of fact. If they forced me to fight for my survival, I would fight. And I was starting to understand just how much damage I could do. The lead warrior exchanged glances with his companions. I could feel their uncertainty, their fear warring with duty. I'll take your proposal to the Bloodmark Alpha, he said finally. But I can't promise he'll agree. Then you'd better be persuasive, I said. Because if pack warriors come for me again without offering a fair trial, I won't be so restrained next time. The warriors left, moving quickly through Haven's entrance and disappearing into the forest beyond. The moment they were gone, the crowd erupted in anxious chatter. Matthias approached me, his expression unreadable. That was either very brave or very stupid. Probably both, I admitted, my hands shaking now that the adrenaline was wearing off. You could have hurt that warrior, Matthias said quietly. I felt the power building. You could have destroyed his mind with a thought. But I didn't. No, you didn't. Matthias smiled slightly. Maybe there's hope for you yet, Wraith Luna. Zara was less optimistic. You've just painted a target on Haven's back, she said angrily. When they come back, and they will come back, they'll bring armies. They'll destroy this place trying to get to you. Then I'll leave before that happens, I said. I won't let Haven burn because of me. You're not going anywhere, Kieran said, pushing through the crowd to stand beside me. We protect our own here. That includes you. I'm not your own, I protested. You're one of us, Kieran interrupted firmly. A rogue. An outcast. Someone the packs threw away. That makes you a family. He looked around at the gathered rogues. Right? Silence for a moment. Then one by one, rogues began nodding. Agreeing. Claiming me as one of their own despite the danger I represented. I felt tears pricking my eyes. I don't deserve this. None of us deserve what we get, Matthias said. But we take care of each other anyway. That's what makes us different from the packs. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay on my cot, staring at the ceiling, replaying the confrontation with the Bloodmark warriors over and over. Analyzing every choice, every word, every moment where I could have done something different. You showed restraint, my wolf said. That's good. I wanted to hurt him, I admitted. When I felt all his fear and guilt and buried trauma, part of me wanted to shove it all back at him. Make him drown in it the way I've drowned in my own pain. But you didn't. That's what matters. This time, I said. But what about next time? What about when they come back with armies instead of scouts? When they're trying to kill me and everyone I care about? Then we'll make a different choice, my wolf said. Each moment is its own decision, Ravenna. You don't have to commit to being one thing forever. You just have to choose at each moment who you want to be. A knock at my door interrupted my spiraling thoughts. I opened it to find Matthias standing there, holding a leather-bound book. Can't sleep either? He asked. Too much to think about, I admitted. I thought you might want this. He offered me the book. It's Saren's journal. My sister's. She kept detailed records of her experiences as a Wraith Luna. Her struggles with empathic ability. Her attempts to negotiate with the packs. Her descent. I took the journal carefully, feeling the weight of it. Why give this to me now? Because you need to understand what you're facing, Matthias said. The path ahead of you is the same one she walked. Reading her words might help you avoid her mistakes. Or it might terrify me into becoming exactly what she became. That's the risk, Matthias agreed. But I think you're stronger than she was. More grounded. She had no one to help her, no one who understood. You have Haven. You have me. You have a chance she never got. After he left, I lit a candle and opened Saren's journal. The first entry was dated 823 years ago, written in elegant script that spoke of education and privilege. My name is Saren Darkwada, and today I shifted for the first time. They called my wolf magnificent, silver fur, larger than any alpha's beast. Father is already making plans to marry me to the strongest alpha in the territories. He says I'll unite the packs under one rule. He doesn't know yet that I'm not interested in ruling. I'm interested in changing the system that makes ruling necessary. That makes some wolves worth more than others based on nothing but strength. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to make them see. I turned the pages, reading entry after entry. Watching Saren's optimism slowly curdle into frustration as pack after pack refused to listen to her concerns. As alphas dismissed her ideas as feminine weakness. As she was mocked, threatened, and eventually attacked for daring to suggest that hierarchy based on strength alone was unjust. And then, about 2 years into her journal, I felt it today. The suffering. Not just one wolf, but hundreds. Thousands. Every omega beaten for being weak. Every low-ranked wolf starved because they didn't earn their food. Every child told them they were worthless because their bloodline wasn't pure enough. The empathic ability has fully awakened, and I can't shut it out. Can't stop feeling their pain. It's drowning me, breaking me. And the alphas still won't listen. Still won't change. Maybe words aren't enough. Maybe I need to speak in the only language they understand. The entries after that grew darker. More violent. Saren describes the first pack she destroyed, the first alpha she killed. Her justifications grew thinner as her rage grew stronger. Until the final entry, written in shaky handwriting that suggested a trembling hand. I've become the monster they always said I was. I can't stop now. Can't let their deaths mean nothing. So I'll keep destroying them until they understand. Until they change, or until there's nothing left to change. Whoever reads this after I'm gone, if you're a Wraith Luna like me, if you're struggling with the same power, please, don't follow my path. Don't let the pain of others turn you into something that causes more pain. Be better than I was. Be what I couldn't be. I closed the journal, tears streaming down my face. Saren had started exactly where I was. I want to help. I want to change things. And she'd ended up becoming the thing she fought against. We won't make her mistakes, my wolf said firmly.
We know the danger now.
We'll be careful. Will we? I asked. Or are we just lying to ourselves? Telling ourselves we're different when we're already on the same path. We're different because we choose to be, my wolf insisted. Every day, every moment, we choose. I lay back down, clutching Saren's journal to my chest, and tried to believe her. I tried to believe that I could be something other than what history expected. But in the darkness, doubt whispered its poison. You're already lying to yourself. Already justifying future violence by calling it justice. Saren did the same thing. And look how she ended up. I read Saren's journal tonight. The last Wraith Luna. Matthias's sister. She started out just like me, wanting to fix things, wanting to change the pack system peacefully. 2 years later, she was destroying packs and killing alphas. Her final entry was a warning. Don't follow my path. Be better than I was. But here's what keeps me up at night. At what point did Saren stop being the hero of her own story and become the villain? Where's the line between justified resistance and becoming the monster they claim you are? Because I can feel it already. That rage. That desire to make them understand by forcing them to feel what I felt. And I'm terrified that one day I'll wake up and realize I've crossed a line I can't cross. Chapter SX The summons came exactly 1 week after the Bloodmark scouts left Haven. A messenger arrived at dawn. A young wolf bearing the neutral gray sash of a courier, his eyes wide with barely concealed fear as he delivered a sealed letter to Matthias. I watched from my cabin doorway as the old wolf read it, his scarred face growing grimmer with each line. They agreed to the trial, Matthias said when I joined him in his workshop minutes later. All 5 major packs. They're convening a grand council in 3 days at the summit grounds, neutral territory between all their borders. That's good, right? I asked, though the knot in my stomach suggested otherwise. A fair trial is what I asked for. Fair is a generous word for what you're walking into. Matthias tossed the letter onto his cluttered workbench. A grand council hasn't been called in 50 years. The last time was to judge a pack alpha accused of murdering his rival's children. They sentenced him to death by silver poisoning, made it last 3 days. The knot in my stomach tightened. You think they've already decided to kill me? I think they're going through the motions of a trial to maintain the appearance of justice, Matthias said bluntly. But yes, most likely they've already decided. The question is whether you can convince them otherwise.
How?
I don't know anything about pack politics or legal arguments. I'm a kitchen servant who's been a wolf for less than a month. Which is why you're not going alone. Kieran's voice came from the doorway. He entered carrying a pack stuffed with supplies. I'm coming with you. So is Matthias. I didn't agree to that, Matthias grumbled. You didn't disagree either, Kieran countered. Ravenna needs someone who knows pack law, and someone who can speak to the historical precedent of the Wraith Luna. That's you. And she needs someone who can fight if this goes sideways. That's me. It will go sideways, I said quietly. They're not going to let me walk away from this. Then we make sure you're ready for whatever happens. Zara entered behind Kieran, her scarred face set in determined lines. 3 days isn't much time, but it's enough to teach you the basics of pack law and courtroom combat. Courtroom combat? I repeated. The Grand Council operates under ancient laws, Matthias explained, settling into his chair with a wince. Legal arguments are only one part of a trial. If the accused is deemed too dangerous for words alone, the council can demand a trial by combat, the accused against a champion of their choosing. Win, and you're declared innocent. Lose, and well. And I die, I finished. Most likely, Matthias agreed. Which is why Zara is going to spend the next 3 days teaching you to actually fight, not just go through training exercises. Finally, my wolf said with savage satisfaction. Real combat training. The next 3 days blurred into a haze of brutal preparation. Zara no longer held back during our sparring sessions. She came at me with full strength and speed, treating me like a real opponent rather than a student. I earned more bruises in those 3 days than in the previous 3 weeks combined. Block higher, she barked as her practice sword slammed into my ribs, driving the air from my lungs. You're leaving your entire right side open. An experienced fighter will gut you in seconds. I scrambled to adjust my stance, raising my sword just in time to deflect her next strike. The impact jarred my arms, but I held on. Better, Zara acknowledged. Again. We went again, and again, and again. Between combat sessions, Matthias drilled me on pack law and council procedures, the proper forms of address for each alpha, the protocols for presenting evidence, the specific phrasing required to invoke ancient rights and protections. You need to understand, Matthias said on the second night, his good eye boring into me with unusual intensity, the Grand Council isn't interested in truth. They're interested in maintaining order. If they believe killing you will preserve pack stability, they'll do it regardless of whether you're actually guilty of anything. Then why agree to a trial at all? I asked, exhausted and aching from another day of Zara's brutal training. Because publicly executing someone without trial makes them look like tyrants, Matthias said. But executing someone after a trial, even a rigged one, lets them claim they followed proper procedure. It's all political theater, Ravenna. You're just the sacrifice they need to prove they're still in control. So, I'm already dead, I said flatly. Not necessarily. Matthias pulled out another of his ancient texts. There are precedents for Wraith Luna being granted clemency. Rare, but they exist. If you can prove 3 things, that you pose no immediate threat, that you're willing to submit to oversight, and that killing you would cause more problems than letting you live, you might survive this. How do I prove any of that when they're already terrified of what I might become? By being exactly what you've been since you arrived at Haven, Kieran said from where he sat sharpening his weapons in the corner. Restrained. Thoughtful. Someone who had the power to hurt that bloodmark warrior, but chose not to. Show them that, and maybe, enough of them will vote for mercy instead of execution. On the third day, Zara pulled me aside after our final sparring session. Listen, she said, her voice unusually quiet. If this does turn into a trial by combat, you need to understand something. Pack champions aren't like me. They won't pull their punches or give you time to recover. They'll come at you with killing intent from the first second. I know, I said, rolling my shoulder where she'd landed a particularly solid hit. No, you don't. Zara grabbed my arm, her scarred face intense. You still fight like you're trying not to hurt your opponent, like you're afraid of your own strength. But in a trial by combat, that mercy will get you killed. What are you saying? I'm saying when you step into that circle, you need to let your wolf out fully. Not just the shift, but the killer instinct. The willingness to do whatever it takes to survive. Zara's grip tightened. Can you do that? Can you actually kill someone if you have to? I thought about Magnus attacking me at the ravine. About the bloodmark warrior, whose mind I could have shattered with a thought. About all the wolves who'd hurt me, dismissed me, tried to destroy me. Yes, my wolf said immediately. We can kill. We will kill if they force us to. But saying it out loud was different. Admitting that I was capable of taking a life, even in self-defense, felt like crossing a line I couldn't cross. I don't know, I finally said. Zara released my arm and stepped back. Then you'd better figure it out before you get to the summit grounds. Because hesitation, even for a second, will be the difference between walking away alive and dying on your knees. We left for the summit grounds before dawn on the fourth day. The journey would take most of the day. The neutral territory lay at the exact center point between all 5 major pack borders, carefully maintained as a place where pack politics could be conducted without favoring any one territory. Kieran led the way, moving through the forest with the easy confidence of someone who'd traveled these paths many times. Matthias rode a sturdy horse, his cane strapped to the saddle and his one good eye constantly scanning our surroundings. And I walked between them, wearing simple gray clothes that Zara had provided and carrying nothing but the crystal around my neck and the weight of impossible expectations. We should run, my wolf suggested as we crossed into what Kieran identified as the outer boundary of neutral territory. Just shift and run. Keep running until we're beyond the reach of all the packs. There is nothing beyond their reach, I said quietly. You heard what Kieran said. The territories are all connected. They'd find us eventually. Then we fight our way out when they try to take us. And prove we're exactly the monster they think we are. I finished.
No.
We do this the right way. We face the council, and we prove we're not a threat. Even if the right way gets us killed, even then. We reached the summit grounds by late afternoon. The neutral territory was a broad valley surrounded by forested hills, with a massive stone amphitheater at its center, clearly ancient, built long before the current pack system existed. 5 banners flew from poles around the amphitheater's perimeter, each bearing the symbol of one of the major packs. Stonecrest's Grey Wolf, Ironmoor's Black Fortress, Shadowfen's Coiled Serpent, Highcrest's Mountain Peak, and Bloodmark's Crimson Wolf Head. My former pack was here, which meant there was a chance I'd see my family again. I hope we do, my wolf snarled. I hope we see Delilah, and she sees what she created. Warriors from all 5 packs stood guard around the amphitheater, their hands on weapons as we approached. I recognized Magnus among the Stonecrest contingent, the head warrior who'd administered my force shift. His eyes widened when he saw me, and his hand immediately went to his sword. Easy, Kieran said quietly. They can't attack during council proceedings. It's one of the oldest laws. This ground is sacred. Violence here would bring down the wrath of all 5 packs on whoever broke the peace. Comforting, I muttered. A stern-faced wolf wearing the gray sash of a council administrator approached us. State your business. Ravenna Ashmore, Matthias said before I could speak, his voice carrying surprising authority. summoned to appear before the Grand Council to answer charges regarding her nature as a Wraith Luna. The administrator consulted a ledger, then nodded curtly. You're expected. The accused may enter with 2 advocates. Choose. Matthias and Kieran, I said immediately. Very well. Follow me. He led us into the amphitheater, and my breath caught at the sight before me. The arena was massive, easily large enough to hold 1,000 wolves. Tiered stone seating rose on all sides, and I could see pack members already gathering. Hundreds of wolves came to witness the trial of the Wraith Luna. At the center of the arena floor stood a raised platform where 5 ornate chairs sat in a semicircle. And in those chairs sat the 5 alphas who ruled the northern territories. Alpha Thaddeus of Stonecrest, looking older and grimmer than I remembered. Alpha Rowan of Ironmoor, a massive male with iron-gray hair and eyes like chips of flint. Alpha Celine of Shadowfen, a beautiful woman with dark skin and darker eyes that seemed to see through pretense. Alpha Cormac of Highcrest, young for an alpha, with red-gold hair and a sharp, intelligent face. And Alpha Darius of Bloodmark, the largest of them all, his scarred features and cold expression radiating barely contained violence. These were the wolves who would decide if I lived or died. Ravenna Ashmore. Thaddeus's voice boomed across the amphitheater as we took our places in the center of the arena floor. You stand before the Grand Council accused of being a Wraith Luna, a power that history has shown to be catastrophically dangerous to pack society. How do you answer this charge? I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes on me. Feeling the fear and hatred radiating from the gathered packs through my empathic sense. I answer that being a Wraith Luna is what I am, I said, keeping my voice steady. Not what I've done. I'm guilty of existing. Nothing more. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Existing is enough, Darius said, his voice like grinding stone. The last Wraith Luna existed too, right up until she slaughtered 7 packs. Your very nature is a threat. My nature is what the moon goddess gave me, I countered. Are you suggesting the goddess makes mistakes? I'm suggesting the goddess sometimes sends tests, Darius said. Challenges we must overcome to prove our strength. Perhaps you are such a test, one we overcome by eliminating you before you can fulfill your destructive potential. That's execution without crime, Matthias interjected, which violates the most fundamental pack law, innocence until proven guilty. She's a Wraith Luna, Rowan said flatly. That alone is proof of guilt. No, Alpha Celine said quietly, and everyone turned to look at her. That is fear speaking, not law. Being born with power is not a crime. Using that power to harm others is a crime. She fixed her dark eyes on me. So tell us, Ravenna Ashmore, have you harmed anyone with your Wraith Luna abilities? No, I said. She attacked me. Magnus shouted from the Stonecrest section. At the ravine, after her force shift. She could have killed me. I defended myself, I said, meeting Magnus' sighs. You and 7 other warriors were trying to kill me. I ran. That's not a crime. You refused Alpha authority, Thaddeus said. You challenged me directly during your shift. That is grounds for execution under pack law. I didn't challenge you, I said. My wolf, newly awakened and terrified, reacted on instinct when you tried to force submission. That's not the same as deliberate defiance. Semantics, Darius growled. No. Cormac spoke for the first time, his sharp eyes studying me with interest. It's an important distinction. A wolf's first shift is traumatic under the best circumstances. A forced shift is torture. The fact that her wolf reacted defensively rather than offensively actually shows remarkable restraint. Restraint? Thaddeus looked at Cormac incredulously. She's a Wraith Luna. There is no restraint in that power. Only destruction waiting to be unleashed. Then let's test that claim, Celine said. Ravenna, you have an empathic ability, yes? The power to sense and influence emotions. Yes, I admitted, seeing no point in lying. Demonstrate it, Celine commanded. Show this council what you can do. My heart was hammered. This was a trap. Had to be. If I demonstrated my power, they'd use it as evidence that I was too dangerous. But if I refused,
Do it, my wolf said.
show them we could hurt them, but choose not to. I took a breath and reached out with my empathic sense, letting the emotional amplification crystal do its work. Immediately, I was flooded with the emotions of everyone in the amphitheater. Fear, curiosity, hatred, hope, anger. A cacophony of feelings that threatened to overwhelm me. I focused on the 5 alphas before me. Thaddeus. Shame and guilt buried deep beneath anger. He knew what he'd done to me was wrong, but admitting it would mean admitting weakness. Rowan. Certainty and cold calculation. He'd already decided I needed to die and was simply waiting for the excuse. Celine. Genuine curiosity mixed with caution. She wanted to believe I could be different, but feared being wrong. Cormac. Fascination and political maneuvering. He saw me as a potential asset, a tool he could use. And Darius. Rage barely contained, ancient and terrible. Something had happened to him involving the last Wraith Luna, something that left scars deeper than the ones visible on his face. I can feel what you're feeling, I said quietly. All of you. Your fear. Your anger, your hopes, and your hatred. I looked at each alpha in turn, and I could amplify those feelings. Could make your fear so overwhelming you'd flee this arena in panic. Could turn your anger into mindless rage that would tear this council apart. The amphitheater went deathly silent. But I won't, I continued, because that would make me exactly what you fear. A monster who uses power to control and destroy rather than to understand and protect. Pretty words, Darius said, though his voice was less certain now. But words are cheap. How do we know you'll maintain that restraint when you're angry? When you're threatened? You already know, I said. Your scout, the one who came to heaven. I touched him, felt all his trauma and pain. And I could have broken him with that knowledge, could have shattered his mind by reflecting his worst memories back at him. But I didn't. Why not? Rowan demanded. Because hurting him wouldn't have solved anything, I said simply. It would just have created more pain, more reasons for violence. And I'm tired of the pain. Tired of violence. I just want to live without being hunted for something I didn't choose. Silence again. Then Celine spoke. I move that we grant Ravenna Ashmore provisional clemency, she said. She will submit to monitoring by a neutral party. I suggest Matthias, who has experience with Wraith Lunas and no pack allegiance. She will be restricted to Haven and its immediate surroundings. And she will appear before this council every 6 months to demonstrate continued control. Any violation of these terms results in immediate execution. I second the motion, Cormac said. Absolutely not, Darius snarled. She's too dangerous. Then I invoke the right of trial by combat, Rowan interrupted. Let her prove her worth against a champion. If she wins, she's earned her life. If she loses, the problem solves itself. My blood ran cold. This was it. The trap is closing. I accept the terms of trial by combat, I heard myself say, though my voice seemed to come from very far away. Excellent, Rowan said with a cold smile. Then I name my champion. Darius Bloodmark, Alpha of Bloodmark Pack and the wolf who killed the last Wraith Luna 800 years ago. The amphitheater erupted in shocked gasps and excited chatter. And I stared at Darius, at the ancient Alpha who'd lived for 8 centuries, who'd killed Saren with his own hands, and realized I'd just agreed to fight a wolf whose power and experience made him virtually unbeatable. We're going to die, my wolf said quietly. And for the first time since she'd awakened, I couldn't argue with her. So here's where I am. I have to fight an Alpha who's lived for 800 years. The same Alpha who killed the last Wraith Luna, Matthias' sister. The same Alpha whose rage I can feel through my empathic sense, burning with ancient hatred for everything I represent. I can't beat him. Not with a month of training against 8 centuries of combat experience. Not with my barely controlled power against his mastered strength. But here's the thing, I agreed to this. I walked into this council and demanded a fair trial, and they gave me one. Trial by combat is as fair as it gets in pack law, even if it's a death sentence. So I have two choices: fight and probably die trying to prove I'm not a monster, or refuse and definitely die proving I am one. What would you do? Face impossible odds for a chance at life? Or accept that some battles can't be won? Tell me, because I have less than 12 hours to decide, and I honestly don't know which choice is braver, fighting or surrendering. Chapter 7. They gave me 12 hours to prepare for my death. That's what it was really. Not a trial. Not a test of worth. A formalized execution dressed up as honorable combat, so the packs could claim they'd given me a fair chance. I sat in the small tent they'd provided for me on the edge of the summit grounds, staring at my hands and trying not to think about the fact that in 12 hours, those hands would either be fighting for my life or cold and lifeless. You don't have to do this, Kieran said for the third time. He paced the tent like a caged animal, his amber eyes reflecting the lamplight. We can run.
Right now.
I know paths through the mountains that even pack trackers can't follow. And then what? I asked tiredly. Spend the rest of my life running? Looking over my shoulder? That's not living, Kieran. That's just a slower death. It's still better than... He gestured helplessly at the amphitheater visible through the tent opening, where workers were preparing the combat circle for tomorrow's trial. Then this. Then fighting an alpha who's had 800 years to perfect killing. Darius didn't just kill Saren, Matthias said quietly from where he sat in the corner, Saren's journal open in his lap. He destroyed her. I found the records. The fight lasted 3 hours. He didn't just defeat her, he broke her. Made an example of what happens when a Wraith Luna goes too far. Comforting, I muttered. I'm not trying to comfort you, Matthias said bluntly. I'm trying to make you understand what you're facing. Darius isn't just old and experienced. He's obsessed. My sister killed his mate during her rampage, tore out her throat in front of him. He's spent 8 centuries hating Wraith Lunas, waiting for another one to appear so he could kill it too. So, I'm not just fighting for my life, I said. I'm fighting his 800-year-old need for revenge against her sister. Yes. We sat in heavy silence. Outside, I could hear wolves gathering, setting up camps around the amphitheater. Hundreds of them come from all 5 packs to witness the spectacle, to see if the Wraith Luna would provide entertainment before she died. We could still win, my wolf said, but even she didn't sound convinced. We're strong, larger than normal wolves. We have the empathic ability, which won't work on someone with 800 years of mental discipline. I interrupted aloud. Darius has probably trained himself to resist exactly that kind of attack. And size doesn't matter when you're fighting someone who's seen every combat technique ever invented. Then don't fight him as a wolf, Zara's voice came from the tent entrance. She ducked inside, carrying a bundle wrapped in oiled leather. Fight him as a Wraith Luna. What's the difference? I asked. Zara unwrapped the bundle, revealing a set of silver daggers. Actual silver, the metal that could permanently harm werewolves. The difference is that a wolf fights with instinct and strength. A Wraith Luna fights with power that shouldn't exist. You're not just a big wolf, Ravenna. You're a divine instrument. An aberration in the natural order. So stop trying to fight by the rules and start fighting like the thing they fear. You want me to use my empathic ability, I said slowly. Even though you just heard Matthias say, it won't work on Darius. I want you to use everything, Zara said fiercely. Your size, your speed, your ability to sense emotions even if you can't manipulate them. I want you to shift mid-combat, to speak in wolf form and unnerve him. I want you to be so unpredictable, so unlike anything he's fought before, that his 800 years of experience become a disadvantage instead of an advantage. She pressed the silver daggers into my hands. These are my gifts to you. Silver wounds don't heal quickly, even for alphas. If you can land even one good cut, it'll slow him down. Give you an advantage. Silver weapons are illegal in trials by combat, Matthias pointed out. Only if someone reports it, Zara said with a sharp smile. And I don't see anyone here who'd snitch. I looked at the daggers, feeling their weight. I've never fought with knives. Then you have 12 hours to learn the basics, Zara said.
Come on.
We're not wasting your last night alive sitting around feeling sorry for ourselves. Zara drilled me in knife fighting until my hands were cramping and my arms felt like lead. The basics were simpler than sword work: slashing, stabbing, blocking with a blade held reverse grip. But the weight distribution was different, the movements closer and more intimate than the distance sword fighting allowed. Remember, Zara said as we practiced in the darkness outside the tent, silver cuts burn. Even a shallow wound will hurt like hell and distract him. You're not trying to kill him with the daggers, you're trying to create openings for your wolf to exploit. So, I need to shift mid-fight, I said, blocking her practice strike and countering with a slash aimed at her ribs. While he's trying to kill me. You've been practicing smooth shifts for weeks now, Zara reminded me, dancing back for my attack. You can do it in under 5 seconds. That's faster than most wolves half Darius's age. Use that speed. We trained until the moon reached its peak, until my muscles screamed and my breath came in ragged gasps. Until I could execute the basic knife sequences without thinking, my body moved on instinct. That's enough, Zara finally said. You need to rest. Tomorrow, she paused, her scarred face softening slightly. Tomorrow, fight like your life depends on it. Because it does. I returned to the tent to find Matthias asleep in his chair, Saren's journal still clutched in his weathered hands. Kieran sat sharpening his sword, his expression distant. You should sleep too, I said quietly. Can't, Kieran admitted. Every time I close my eyes, I see. He stopped, jaw clenching. See me dying?
Yeah.
I sat beside him, close enough that our shoulders touched. I'm scared, I admitted. Terrified, actually. Of the pain. Of failing. Of proving everyone right about Wraith Luna being too dangerous to live. You won't prove them right, Kieran said firmly. Because you're not dangerous in the way they think. You're dangerous to their system. To their hierarchy. That's what they're really afraid of. Not that you'll kill wolves, but that you'll show them there's another way to live. Pretty philosophical for someone who's afraid I'm about to die. I cope through intellectualization, Kieran said with a weak smile. Then his expression turned serious. Ravenna, if this goes badly, if you're losing, shift to human form and yield. It's allowed in trial by combat. You'd lose your case, and they'd probably exile you, but you'd live. Exiled as a confirmed threat, I said. Hunted by every pack in the territories for the rest of my probably very short life. Still better than dead. Is it? I looked at him. Would you yield? If you were in my position? Kieran was quiet for a long moment. No, he finally admitted. No, I probably wouldn't. I'd fight until I couldn't anymore because the alternative would feel like betraying everything I believe in. Then don't ask me to do what you wouldn't do, I said gently. We sat in silence until the first hints of dawn began lightening the eastern sky. Until the sounds of the camp stirring told us that my 12 hours were up. Time to face the monster who'd killed the last Wraith Luna. Time to prove I was different. Or time to die trying. The amphitheater was packed when they led me into the combat circle. Thousands of wolves filled the tiered seating, their voices a constant roar of anticipation. I could feel their bloodlust through my empathic sense, the eager desire to see violence, to witness death, to have their fears about Wraith Luna confirmed by watching me fall. The combat circle itself was 30 feet across, marked by white stones embedded in the arena floor. Ancient runes were carved into those stones, wards that would contain the fight, prevent outside interference, and ensure that whatever happened within the circle was binding and final. Matthias and Kieran stood at the circle's edge, their faces grim. Zara had positioned herself among the crowd, her hand resting on a concealed weapon in case the trial devolved into chaos. The 5 alphas sat in their chairs on the raised platform, watching with varying degrees of interest and hostility. And, across the circle from me stood Darius Bloodmark. Up close, he was even more intimidating than from a distance. Easily 7 feet tall in human form, built like a mountain of muscle and controlled violence. The scars covered every visible inch of skin, the accumulated marks of 800 years of combat. His eyes were the pale gray of old ice, and they looked at me with such concentrated hatred that I actually took a step back. "Combatants," Alpha Selene announced, her voice magically amplified to carry across the entire amphitheater. "You are here to settle by combating the question of Ravenna Ashmore's right to live as a Wraith Luna. The rules are simple. Fight until one combatant yields, dies, or is rendered unable to continue. No outside interference will be tolerated. No mercy will be shown. May the moon goddess judge the worthy." She stepped back, raising her hand. "Begin." Darius shifted instantly, his massive human form dissolving into an even more massive wolf. Dark gray fur, scars visible even through his coat, eyes still that same cold gray. He was larger than any wolf I'd ever seen except my own Wraith Luna form. And he charged with the speed of something far smaller than he was. I barely had time to shift before he slammed into me, all teeth and claws and 800 years of killing experience. We tumbled across the combat circle, his jaws snapping inches from my throat as I twisted desperately to avoid them. "Too fast," my wolf gasped. How is something that big moving that fast? Because he'd had centuries to perfect every movement, to maximize efficiency and power in ways that took normal wolves lifetimes to learn. I kicked out with my hind legs, catching Darius in the chest and creating separation. The moment I had space, I shifted back to human form, the silver daggers suddenly in my hands. Darius skidded to a halt, surprise flickering across his wolf features. Wolves didn't shift mid-combat. It was considered weak, abandoning your strongest form. But I wasn't fighting like a wolf. I was fighting like a Wraith Luna. Darius charged again, and this time I was ready. I dove to the side, slashing with the silver dagger as he passed. The blade scored a line across his shoulder, and Darius howled, not in pain, but in rage. Silver wounds burned, even for an alpha who'd lived 8 centuries. He spun, faster than I expected, his massive paw catching me across the ribs and sending me flying. I hit the ground hard, the impact driving the air from my lungs. "Shift," my wolf urged. Now, before Darius was already on top of me, his jaws closing around my human shoulder. Agony exploded through my body as his teeth punctured skin and ground against bone. I screamed and drove the silver dagger into his side. Darius released me with a snarl, stumbling back as the silver burned into his flesh. I shifted through the pain, my wolf form erupting from my human shape, and lunged while he was disoriented. We crashed together again, and this time I used my size advantage. I was larger than him, not by much, but enough to matter. My jaws closed on his scruff, shaking him like prey. But Darius had been fighting for 800 years. He knew every trick, every counter, every way to turn an opponent's strength against them. He twisted in my grip, his claws raking across my exposed stomach. I felt skin tear, felt the hot rush of blood, and had to release him or risk being disemboweled. We separated, circling each other, both bleeding from multiple wounds. The crowd was screaming, a wall of sound that made it hard to think. "He's faster and more experienced," my wolf analyzed through the pain. "But we're larger, and we have silver daggers. We need to." Darius didn't give us time to finish the thought. He charged again, and we met in the center of the circle in a collision that shook the ground. This time, I didn't try to match his speed. Instead, I used my empathic ability, not to manipulate his emotions but to predict them. I felt his rage building toward a specific attack pattern. Felt the moment before he shifted his weight to strike at my left side. And I wasn't there when the attack landed. I'd shifted human again, rolling under his strike, coming up behind him with both silver daggers ready. I buried them in his hind legs, just above the joints. Darius roared and collapsed, his legs giving out from the combination of silver poisoning and severed tendons. The crowd went silent. I stood there, human and bleeding, staring at the ancient alpha who'd killed Saren, who'd come here expecting to kill me just as easily, and who was now on the ground, struggling to stand, his legs useless from silver wounds. "Kill him," my wolf said. "Shift and tear out his throat. End this." I could feel it, the the desire for revenge. Not just for myself, but for Saren. For Matthias. For everyone Darius had hurt in his 800-year crusade against Wraith Luna. One bite. That's all it would take. But then what? I'd be exactly what they feared. The Wraith Luna who killed an alpha, who proved she was too dangerous to let live. I'd win the battle and lose everything else. Yield, I said, my voice carrying across the silent amphitheater.
Please.
I don't want to kill you. Darius looked up at me, blood dripping from his muzzle, hatred burning in his eyes. Never, he snarled. He lunged from his collapsed position, jaws aiming for my throat in a last desperate attack. And I shifted. My massive silver wolf met his lunge, my jaws closing around his throat, not crushing, not killing, but holding. Pinning him. Forcing submission. Yield. I projected through the mental link all wolves shared. I'm stronger. We both know it. But I don't want your death. I want this to end. For a long moment, Darius struggled. Then slowly, painfully, he went limp in my grip. Submitting. I released him immediately, stepping back and shifting to human form. He yields, I said to the alphas on the platform. The combat is over. Silence for 3 heartbeats. Then Alpha Selene stood. The trial by combat is concluded. Ravenna Ashmore has defeated her opponent without killing him, despite having the opportunity. The council will now vote on her clemency. I vote yes, Selene said immediately. She's proven restraint even in combat. That's more control than most wolves show. Yes, Cormac agreed. Anyone else would have killed Darius when they had the chance. The fact that she didn't proves she's not the monster we feared. Yes, Thaddeus said quietly, and I saw shame in his eyes when he looked at me. I was wrong about her. The Council of Stonecrest was wrong. She deserves her life. No, Rowan said flatly. She's still too dangerous. This changes nothing. All eyes turned to Darius, who had shifted back to human form and was struggling to sit up despite his wounded legs. The 5th vote belongs to you, Selene said. As the injured party in this combat, you have the right to decide. Do you vote for clemency or execution? Darius looked at me for a long moment. I could feel the war raging inside him, 800 years of hatred against the evidence of what I'd just done. The mercy I'd shown when I could have taken revenge. Yes, he finally said, the words seeming to cost him everything. I vote for clemency. She's not Saren. She's something different. The amphitheater erupted in shocked chatter. Then by majority vote, Selene announced, Ravenna Ashmore is granted clemency under the terms I outlined. She will submit to monitoring, remain in Haven's territory, and appear before this council every 6 months to demonstrate continued control. This judgment is final and binding on all packs. I stood there, bleeding and exhausted, barely able to process what had just happened. I'd won. I'd actually won. Kieran was suddenly there, wrapping a cloak around my naked, wounded human form. Matthias appeared on my other side, supporting me as my legs threatened to give out. You did it, Kieran said, his voice thick with emotion. You crazy, magnificent wolf. You actually did it. I didn't kill him, I said numbly. I could have, but I didn't. That's why you won, Matthias said quietly. Saren would have killed him, would have seen it as justice for what he'd done to her. But you chose mercy instead. You chose to be different. As they led me from the combat circle, I looked back at Darius. He was being tended by bloodmark healers, his expression unreadable. Our eyes met across the arena, and something passed between us. Not forgiveness. The wounds were too deep for that. But maybe understanding. Maybe the beginning of something that could eventually become peace. Or maybe I was just delirious from blood loss and wishful thinking. Either way, I was alive. The Wraith Luna had been judged and found worthy of life. Now, I just had to figure out what to do with it. I beat him. I beat an 800-year-old alpha in single combat. And when I had the chance to kill him, to avenge Saren, to prove my strength, to make sure he could never threaten me again, I didn't. I chose mercy. And somehow, that mercy saved my life. The council voted for clemency because I proved I'm not Saren. I'm not the Wraith Luna who became a monster. But here's what's keeping me awake now. Hours after the trial, was choosing mercy the right thing to do? Or was it just me being too weak to do what needed to be done? Because Darius still hates Wraith Lunas. The packs still fear me. And I'm bound by council decree to stay in Haven, monitored like a dangerous animal that might go rabid at any moment. I won my freedom, but I'm still in a cage. Just a bigger, prettier cage than before. Is that victory? Or is it just another kind of defeat? Chapter 8. The journey back to Haven took 3 days. 3 days of traveling with wounds that refused to heal properly, despite my wolf's enhanced regeneration. The silver daggers I'd used on Darius had cut both ways. When he'd bitten my shoulder, traces of silver from my own blades had entered my bloodstream. Not enough to kill me, but enough to slow my healing to a crawl. Matthias said I was lucky to be alive. That silver poisoning could linger for weeks in a wolf system, burning through tissue and bone like slow acid. I didn't feel lucky. I felt like I'd traded one prison for another. Stop brooding, Kieran said from where he walked beside the horse carrying my supply pack. You won. You're alive. That's more than anyone expected. I'm alive and leashed, I said, touching the silver cuff around my left wrist, the council's gift, to ensure I kept to the terms of my clemency. It was spelled to track my location and would burn like fire if I crossed beyond Haven's designated boundaries. Monitored. Restricted. One mistake away from execution. Better than being dead, Kieran pointed out. Is it? I asked quietly. Matthias, riding ahead on his horse, looked back at me. Yes, he said firmly, because the dead can't change anything. The living, even the restricted, monitored, leashed living, they still have choices. They can still make a difference. What difference can I make from inside a cage? That depends on how you define a cage, Matthias said. Saren saw her restrictions as imprisonment. Every rule, every limitation on her power felt like chains. So she broke them, and breaking them turned her into exactly what the packs feared. He paused. But restrictions don't have to be chains. They can be boundaries. Guidelines that help you grow stronger within safe limits until you're ready for more freedom. Philosophy lessons, I muttered. Great. That's exactly what I need right now. What you need right now, Zara's voice came from behind us, is to stop feeling sorry for yourself and start planning your next move. I turned to find her jogging to catch up with our group, having scouted ahead to ensure the path was clear. Her scarred face showed no sympathy for my self-pity. Next move? I asked. I just fought an 800-year-old alpha and nearly died. What next move is there? The move where you use your new status to actually change things, Zara said. You're not just some random rogue anymore, Ravenna. You're the Wraith Luna who beat Darius Bloodmark in single combat and chose mercy. You're the wolf who proved she could kill, but didn't. Do you have any idea how powerful that makes you politically? I'm monitored and restricted, I said, raising my silver-cuffed wrist. How is that politically powerful? Because you're alive, Zara said. The council could have executed you, but they didn't. That means they've acknowledged, officially, that a Wraith Luna can coexist with Pack society. That's precedent, Ravenna. That's leverage. I hadn't thought about it that way. She's right, Matthias said. The council's clemency vote isn't just about you. It's a statement that power alone doesn't determine threat level. That restraint and choice matter as much as capability. Other wolves, particularly low-ranked ones who've been crushed by the hierarchy, they'll hear about this. They'll see that change is possible. Change, I repeated bitterly. From inside Haven, where I can't even leave without permission. Then make Haven your power base, Kieran suggested. It's already a refuge for wolves the packs threw away. What if you turned it into something more? A real alternative to pack life. A place where strength isn't the only thing that matters. The idea settled over me, strange and unsettling. I'd been so focused on survival, on proving I wasn't a monster, that I hadn't thought about what came after. What came after? What did a Wraith Luna do when she wasn't fighting for her life? We built something, my wolf said, and I could feel her certainty like bedrock beneath rushing water. We show them what we could have been if they hadn't tried to destroy us. We become what Saren couldn't, a force for change instead of destruction.
How?
I asked aloud. I don't know the first thing about leading or building or any of this. Then you learn, Matthias said simply. Same way you learn to fight. Same way you learn to control your shifts and shield your empathic ability. You practice until you understand it. We reached Haven as the sun was setting on the third day. The settlement looked exactly as I'd left it. Ramshackle buildings clinging to rocky hillsides, wolves moving through narrow paths between structures, the ever-present sense of watchful wariness that came from living outside pack protection. But something was different. As we entered the settlement, rogues emerged from their homes to watch us pass. Not with hostility or fear, but with something else. Something that looked almost like hope. Word travels fast, Zara said quietly. They've heard about the trial. About what you did. A young wolf, couldn't have been more than 17, approached tentatively. Is it true? She asked, her eyes wide. Did you really beat an alpha in combat? Ah, yes, I said, unsure how to respond. And you let him live? Even though he would have killed you? Yes. The girl smiled, bright and sudden. My mother said that's what makes you different. That the last Wraith Luna would have torn him apart, but you chose mercy. She said maybe things really can change. She ran off before I could respond, leaving me staring after her in confusion. See,
Kieran said.
Politically powerful. You're already becoming a symbol. I don't want to be a symbol, I protested. I just want to. To what? Matthias interrupted. To hide? To pretend you're just another rogue? Ravenna, you stopped being just another wolf the moment you shifted into a silver beast twice the size of normal wolves. The question isn't whether you'll be a symbol. The question is what kind of symbol you'll be. I didn't have an answer for that. My cabin was exactly as I'd left it, small, sparse mine. I collapsed onto the cot, every muscle in my body screaming from 3 days of travel with unhealed wounds. Kieran brought me food and water, which I consumed mechanically. Zara stopped by to check my injuries and change the bandages around my shoulder, where Darius's teeth had punctured deep. And Matthias sat in the corner with Saren's journal, reading passages aloud that he thought might help me understand what I was facing. Listen to this, he said. Written 6 months after Saren became a Wraith Luna. They want me to be a symbol, a banner for the oppressed to rally around. But I'm not a banner, I'm a person. I bleed and hurt and make mistakes. How can I be what they need when I barely understand what I am? The words hit too close to home. What did she do? I asked. How did she handle it? Matthias was quiet for a moment. She tried to be what everyone needed. The hero for the oppressed. The threat to the oppressors. The voice of change. And it tore her apart because she couldn't be all those things at once. Eventually, she stopped trying to be a person and became just the symbol. Just the Wraith Luna. And that's when she became truly dangerous. Comforting, I muttered. I'm not trying to comfort you, Matthias said. I'm trying to warn you. Don't lose yourself in what others need you to be. Hold on to Ravenna, the girl who worked in kitchens and tried to be kind even when kindness earned her nothing. That's who saved you at the trial. That's who chose mercy. The Wraith Luna is what you are, but Ravenna is who you are. Don't forget the difference. After everyone left and I was alone in the darkness, I lay on my cot and thought about Matthias's words. Who was I? Not the hollow one anymore. That girl had died in the judgment circle at Stonecrest when my wolf finally emerged. Not just the Wraith Luna either. That was power, not personality. A title, not an identity. So, who was Ravenna Ashmore when you stripped away both the worthlessness and the divine blessing? I didn't know, and that terrified me more than any combat trial. The next morning, I woke to find half of Haven gathered outside my cabin. I opened the door to discover dozens of rogues, males and females of all ages, all watching me with expressions ranging from curiosity to desperation to hope. What's going on? I asked Zara, who stood at the front of the crowd.
They want to talk to you, she said.
about what happened at the trial, about what it means for rogues like us. I don't understand. You proved that the council can be challenged. An older male interrupted. He was missing his left ear, probably from some long-ago battle. That even the lowest-ranked wolf can force the alphas to acknowledge them if they're strong enough. I'm not low-ranked, I protested. I'm a Wraith Luna. That's... You are low-ranked, a female corrected. She carried a child on her hip, both of them thin and worn. Before your shift, you were nothing. A servant, worthless by pack standards. We all heard the story. And now you've beaten an alpha and forced the entire council to grant you clemency. That's everything we've been told is impossible. Understanding crashed over me. To these rogues, wolves who'd been exiled or who'd fled their packs to escape abuse, I wasn't just the Wraith Luna. I was proof that the pack hierarchy wasn't absolute, that the system that had crushed them could be challenged and beaten. What do you want from me? I asked quietly. Teach us. The female with the child said. Teach us how to fight back. How to stand up to the packs that threw us away. How to be strong enough that they can't hurt us anymore. I can't teach you to be Wraith Lunas, I said. That's not something you learn. We don't need to be Wraith Lunas, the old male interrupted. We just need to be brave enough to stop accepting what the packs tell us we're worth.
You can teach us that.
You already have. I looked at the crowd, at the desperate hope in their eyes, and felt the weight of their expectations settling on my shoulders like chains. This is what Saren felt, I realized. This pressure to be everything they need, to save them all. And I understood, suddenly, why she'd eventually cracked under that weight. I'm not a teacher, I said carefully. I'm barely a functional wolf. I've had my abilities for a month. I don't have answers. Then help us find them, Zara said. Look, nobody's asking you to save us all or overthrow the pack system. We're just asking you to share what you learned. How to fight. How to control power. How to believe we're worth something even when everyone says we're not. Put that way, it didn't sound impossible. It sounded like exactly what I'd needed when I was the Hollow One. Someone to see me as more than worthless. Someone to teach me that my worth wasn't determined by other wolves' opinions. Okay, I heard myself say, I'll help, but on one condition. What? The female with the child asked. We do this together. I'm not your leader or your savior. I'm just another rogue trying to figure out how to survive in a system designed to crush us. So we learn together. We help each other. And we don't put all our hope on one wolf's shoulders, because that's how people break. The crowd murmured, considering. Then the old male nodded. Together. I can accept that. One by one, the others agreed. And just like that, without meaning to, I'd started something. A movement. A community. A challenge to everything the packs believed about strength and worth and hierarchy. Be careful, my wolf warned. This is how it started for Saren too. With good intentions and desperate people. Look where it led her. Then we'll do better, I whispered back. We'll learn from her mistakes. Will we? Or will we just make new ones? I didn't have an answer for that. The training started that afternoon. Zara helped me organize the rogues into groups based on skill level. Complete beginners who'd never held a weapon. Intermediate fighters who knew the basics but lacked refinement. And a small group of experienced warriors who'd been exiled from their packs and wanted to help teach the others. I worked with the beginners, teaching them the same basic stances and strikes that Zara had drilled into me. It was strange being on the teaching side. I'd only just learned this myself, and now I was passing it on to others who looked at me like I had all the answers. I didn't, but I had slightly more experience than they did, and sometimes that was enough. No, like this, I said to a young male who kept dropping his practice sword. Grip it firmly, but not so tight your hands cramp. The sword is an extension of your arm, not a separate tool. He adjusted his grip, and I felt a flash of pride when his next swing was significantly cleaner. This is good, my wolf observed. Helping them. Building something instead of destroying. But even as I taught basic combat, I was aware of the silver cuff around my wrist. The council's leash, reminding me that I wasn't free. That one wrong move, one violation of their terms, would mean execution. How could I help others find freedom when I was still trapped myself? You're thinking too hard, Matthias said, appearing beside me as I watched the beginners practice. I can see the doubt eating at you. I'm supposed to help them, I said quietly. But I don't know if I'm helping or just giving them false hope. What if I can't deliver what they need? What if this all falls apart like everything else I've tried? Then it falls apart, and you try something else, Matthias said simply. Ravenna, you're not responsible for solving every problem or saving every wolf. You're just responsible for doing your best with what you have. That's all anyone can ask. It doesn't feel like enough. It never does, Matthias agreed. But that's all we get. The best we can do with the power we're given and the time we have. Saren's mistake wasn't that she tried to help people. It was that she tried to force a specific outcome instead of accepting that some things are beyond even Wraith Luna's control. That night, I sat in my cabin with Saren's journal, reading her accounts of trying to train oppressed wolves to fight back, of watching some succeed and others fail, of feeling the weight of every failure, like a personal condemnation. And I understood why she'd eventually stopped seeing individuals and started seeing only numbers, only results, only the massive system-wide change she believed she needed to create. It was easier,
Cleaner.
less painful than caring about each specific wolf and feeling their hurt when things went wrong. But it was also the beginning of the end. The moment when she stopped being Saren and became just the Wraith Luna. I won't make that mistake, I promise myself. I'll remember their names, their stories. Their individual worth exceeds what they can contribute to some larger cause.
My wolf didn't respond.
But I felt her approval, warm and steady in the back of my consciousness. A knock at my door interrupted my reading. I opened it to find a small girl, maybe 8 years old, standing there with a flower clutched in her dirty hands. For you, she said shyly. Mama said you were sad, and flowers help when you're sad. I took the flower, tears pricking my eyes. Thank you. That's very kind. Are you really the Wraith Luna? The girl asked. Yes. Mama says you're going to make the mean wolves stop being mean. I'm going to try, I said carefully. But it's hard. Sometimes the mean wolves don't want to change. Then make them, the girl said with the absolute certainty of childhood. You're strong. You can make them. She ran off before I could explain that strength couldn't fix everything. That force wouldn't change hearts. That making people do things only bred resentment and resistance. But she was 8. She'd learn those lessons soon enough. I closed the door and looked at the flower, a simple wild flower, half wilted but offered with genuine kindness. This was what I was fighting for. Not grand political change or overthrow of the pack system. Just the small moments of kindness between wolves. The belief that everyone deserved basic dignity and care. If I could protect that, if I could create a space where wolves like that little girl could grow up without being crushed by hierarchy and cruelty, then maybe the Wraith Luna's power was worth the burden it carried. Maybe I could be both Ravenna and the Silver Death. The person and the symbol. The girl who tried to be kind and the force that made kindness possible. It was a fragile hope. Probably impossible. But it was mine. And I was going to hold on to it with everything I had. So here I am, monitored, leashed, and somehow responsible for teaching dozens of rogues how to fight and believe in themselves. No pressure. A little girl gave me a flower tonight and told me I should make the mean wolves stop being mean. Like it's that simple. Like strength alone can fix everything. I wish it was that simple. I wish I could just force change through pure power the way everyone seems to think I can. But Saren tried that. She became the thing everyone feared because she believed force was the only answer. And she destroyed 7 packs before they destroyed her. So I'm trying something different. Teaching instead of commanding. Building instead of breaking. Helping individual wolves instead of trying to change the entire system at once. Is that enough? Or am I just deluding myself that small kindnesses can stand against centuries of entrenched cruelty?
Tell me what you think.
Because some days I believe I'm making a difference. And other days I think I'm just postponing the inevitable, the day when mercy stops being enough and violence becomes the only option left. Chapter 9. 2 months passed in a rhythm I never expected to find comfortable. Wake at dawn. Train with Zara until my muscles screamed. Teach the beginner fighters basic combat techniques. Spend afternoons working on Haven's infrastructure, repairing buildings, organizing supply runs, helping settle disputes between rogues. Evenings with Matthias, studying pack law and history, learning everything I could about the system I was supposedly challenging. The silver cuff around my wrist became so familiar I sometimes forgot it was there. Until I'd reach the boundaries of Haven's territory and feel it burn, reminding me I was still a prisoner, just in a larger kinder cage. But even cages can feel like home when you fill them with purpose. I was teaching a group of young wolves advanced footwork when Kieran appeared at the edge of the training ground, his expression grim. "Ravenna," he called. "You need to come see this." I handed off the lesson to one of the experienced fighters and followed Kieran through Haven's winding paths to the southern entrance, where Zara stood with her hand on her sword, facing 3 wolves I didn't recognize. No, I did recognize one of them. My stomach dropped. Thomas. One of my father's junior warriors from Stonecrest. A wolf who'd watched me serve food and clean floors for 3 years without ever acknowledging my existence. "What's going on?" I asked, moving to stand beside Zara. "They're from Stonecrest," Zara said, not taking her eyes off the visitors. "They say they have a message for you. From your family." Family. The word tasted bitter. "I don't have family in Stonecrest," I said flatly. "Not anymore." "Your mother would disagree," Thomas said, and I hated how his voice hadn't changed. Still that same dismissive tone he'd used when I'd been beneath his notice. "She sent me to deliver an invitation." "An invitation?" I repeated. "To what?" "To return home." Thomas pulled out a sealed letter bearing my mother's personal mark. "Your mother wishes to reconcile, to acknowledge the wrong done to you, and make amends." I stared at the letter like it might bite me. My mother tried to have me killed. She called me a thing and demanded I be destroyed before I could return to Stonecrest. Why would I possibly believe she wants to reconcile? "Things have changed," Thomas said. "After your victory at the Grand Council, after you defeated Darius Bloodmark, public opinion in Stonecrest has shifted. Many wolves are questioning how you were treated. Your mother has come under significant criticism for her role in your exile. So this isn't about reconciliation," I said slowly. "This is about reputation management. My mother wants to publicly forgive me so she doesn't look like the heartless witch who tried to murder her own daughter." Thomas's expression flickered. "I don't know her private motivations. I only know she's extended an invitation for you to visit Stonecrest under the flag of truce, to discuss the possibility of rejoining the pack." "Trap," my wolf snarled immediately. "This is a trap. They want us back on their territory where they can finish what they started." "I'm restricted to Haven's territory," I said, raising my silver-cuffed wrist. "The Council's terms of clemency don't allow me to leave." "The Council has granted an exception for family visits," Thomas said, producing another document with official seals. "You may leave Haven's boundaries for up to 3 days to visit your birth pack, provided you're accompanied by a Council-approved monitor." He looked pointedly at Matthias, who'd appeared beside me during the conversation. "When?" Matthias asked quietly. "Your mother requests your presence in 5 days," Thomas said. "For the Harvest Moon celebration. She wants to publicly acknowledge you before the entire pack." 5 days. The Harvest Moon celebration, one of the biggest events in the pack calendar. When Stonecrest would be filled with visiting wolves from allied packs, all gathered to witness pack hierarchy and strength on display. My mother wanted to acknowledge me in front of hundreds of witnesses. Make a show of reconciliation that would repair her damaged reputation. "I need time to think about this," I said. "You have 5 days," Thomas said, tucking the letter and official document into my hands. "I hope you'll consider accepting. Despite everything, you're still pack-born. That bond doesn't break easily." He and his companions left, disappearing into the forest beyond Haven's boundaries. I stood there holding my mother's letter, feeling the weight of impossible choices pressing down on me. "Don't go," Zara said immediately. "It's obviously a trap. They'll smile and apologize, and the moment you let your guard down, they'll strike. Maybe, Kieran said thoughtfully. Or maybe it's genuine. Ravenna did beat an 800-year-old alpha in single combat. That's not the kind of power you dismiss lightly. Stonecrest might actually want to reconcile because having a Wraith Luna as an ally is better than having one as an enemy. Or they want to get her on their territory so they can bind her power somehow, Zara argued. Magical restraints, silver traps, whatever. She'd be vulnerable there in a way she isn't here. They continued arguing while I broke the seal on my mother's letter. The handwriting was elegant, practiced. My mother had always prided herself on her penmanship. Dearest Ravenna, I write this with a heavy heart and deep shame for the wrongs I have done to you. As your mother, I should have been your greatest protector. Instead, I allowed fear and pride to make me your greatest tormentor. I cannot undo the past 3 years. Cannot erase the pain I caused or the cruelty I permitted. But I can offer you acknowledgement of that wrong and a sincere desire to make amends. Please come home for the Harvest Moon celebration. Let me show you and our pack that you are valued, cherished, and worthy of all the love I failed to give you. Your mother, Ravenna Ashmore. I read it twice, searching for the manipulation I knew had to be hidden in those carefully chosen words. But the letter seemed genuine, emotional. The kind of apology I dreamed of hearing for 3 years, which meant it was either real or the most dangerous trap imaginable. What does it say? Matthias asked gently. I handed him the letter. He read it, his scarred face unreadable. Well crafted, he finally said. Hits all the emotional notes. Acknowledges fault without going into specific details. Offers reconciliation without concrete promises of what that entails. So it's fake, I said. Not necessarily, Matthias said. It could be genuine. Your mother could truly regret what she did. Or she could be playing a long political game. Without more information, there's no way to know which. Then I need more information, I said. I need to know what's really happening in Stonecrest before I make any decisions.
How? Kieran asked.
You can't exactly send spies into pack territory. No, I agreed. But I can reach out to someone who might tell me the truth. That night, I sat in my cabin with the emotional amplification crystal around my neck and Saren's journal open to a passage about long-distance empathic communication. The Wraith Luna's empathic ability isn't limited by physical proximity, Saren had written. With sufficient focus and a strong emotional connection to the target, you can reach across vast distances. Feel what they feel. Sometimes even communicate mind to mind. I'd never tried this before. Had barely mastered shielding myself from nearby emotions, let alone reaching out across miles to touch a specific mind. But there was one person in Stonecrest who might tell me the truth. One person whose emotions I'd felt clearly enough to recognize anywhere. I closed my eyes and reached out with my empathic sense, searching for the familiar constellation of feelings that marked my twin sister. Delilah. The connection formed slowly, like trying to grab smoke. But gradually, I found her, that distinctive mix of ambition and insecurity, beauty and bitter jealousy that had defined her since we were children. She was awake, sitting in what I recognized through her senses as her bedroom in the main house. The bedroom that should have been half mine, before I'd been relegated to the storage room. Delilah, I projected, not sure if she'd hear me. I felt her shock, her sudden fear. Her mind was scrambling to understand where the voice was coming from. How you can't. I can, I said simply. Wraith Luna abilities. I need to ask you something. I'm not telling you anything. Delilah's mental voice was sharp, defensive.
Get out of my head.
Is Mother's invitation genuine? I pushed past her resistance, pressing the question into her consciousness. Or is this a trap? Silence for a moment. Then I felt Delilah's internal struggle, the desire to lie warring against her knowledge that I could feel her emotions, could sense deception. It's both, she finally admitted. Mother genuinely regrets what happened. The pack's backlash has been brutal. Everyone knows she tried to have you killed, and it's destroying her reputation. Father's position as Beta is threatened because of her actions. So she wants to use me to repair her image, I said.
Yes.
But she also, Delilah hesitated. She also genuinely wants you back. I've heard her crying at night, talking about how she failed you. It's pathetic, honestly. The bitterness in Delilah's mental voice was thick enough to taste.
You hate that, I realized.
You hate that she regrets hurting me. Of course I do. Delilah's emotions flared. I spent years being perfect, being everything she wanted. And now she cries over losing the daughter, who is worthless, who I had to bind and suppress just to keep from overshadowing me. There it was. The confirmation of what my wolf had sensed during my first shift. You bound my wolf, I said, letting my own anger bleed through the connection. You knew I had power, and you deliberately locked it away. Made me think I was hollow. You were always going to be more powerful than me, Delilah said, and I felt her shame beneath the anger. I could sense it even when we were children. This potential inside you that made my wolf feel small and inadequate. So, yes, I found someone who could bind it. Lock it away until it was too late for you to ever truly awaken. But I did awaken, I said. And now I'm everything you feared I'd be. Now you're a freak, Delilah spat. A monitored, leashed freak who can't even leave her rogue settlement without permission. Don't act like you won, Ravenna. You're still trapped, just in a different cage. Her words hit harder than I expected because they were true. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Why not just let me walk into whatever trap is waiting? I felt Delilah's hesitation. Then, surprisingly, a flicker of something that might have been genuine emotion. Because despite everything, you're still my twin, she said quietly. We shared a womb. I shared a childhood before everything went wrong. And she paused.
I don't want to watch you die.
Even if I hate what you've become. Then tell me the truth. All of it. What's really happening at Stonecrest? Delilah was silent for a long moment. Then I felt her resolve crumble. Father has made a deal with Alpha Thaddeus, she said. If you return for the Harvest Moon celebration, you'll be publicly acknowledged and welcomed back into the pack. But there are conditions. What conditions? You have to submit to Alpha authority.
Publicly.
Show that a Wraith Luna can be controlled, can exist within pack hierarchy, without threatening it. If you do that, Stonecrest gets credit for taming the dangerous Wraith Luna and Father's position is secured. And if I refuse to submit, then you'll be declared hostile to pack interests, Delilah said. And every pack in the Northern Territories will be legally permitted to hunt you. No more clemency. No more restrictions. Just open season on the Wraith Luna until someone brings back your head. The trap snapped into focus with crystalline clarity. I couldn't refuse the invitation without triggering a death sentence. But accepting it meant submitting to the very hierarchy that had crushed me, proving that even a Wraith Luna could be controlled.
There's no good choice, I said bitterly.
No, Delilah agreed. There isn't. Welcome to pack politics, sister. Where every option is shit, and you just have to choose which shit tastes least terrible. Why are you helping me? I asked. Really? I felt Delilah's emotions shift. Complex layers of jealousy and regret, and something that might have been love twisted beyond recognition. Because I already destroyed you once, she said quietly. And it didn't make me feel better. It didn't make me stronger or more worthy. It just made me the wolf who betrayed her own sister. And I'm tired of being that wolf.
That's almost an apology, I said.
Don't push it, Delilah said, but I felt her lips quirk in something approaching a smile. Just whatever you decide, be smart about it. Father and Thaddeus are expecting you to either submit like a good little wolf or refuse, and give them justification to have you killed. If you want to survive this, you need to find a third option. What third option? I don't know, Delilah said. But you're the mighty Wraith Luna who beat Darius Bloodmark. If anyone can find a way out of an impossible situation, it should be you. The connection began to fade, Delilah's presence slipping away across the distance. Delilah, I called. Thank you. Don't thank me, she said.
Just don't die.
I already have enough guilt without adding your death to it. Then she was gone, and I was alone in my cabin with the knowledge of an impossible choice ahead of me. Submit to pack authority and prove the Wraith Luna could be controlled. Or refuse and be hunted to death by every pack in the territories. Those were my options. Unless I could find a third way. I called a meeting in Matthias's workshop, just him, Kieran, Zara, and me. Told them everything Delilah had revealed. It's brilliant, actually, Matthias said when I finished. From their perspective, they've created a scenario where you can't win. Submit, and you prove Wraith Luna can be dominated. Refuse, and you prove they're too dangerous to live. Either way, the pack hierarchy wins. Then we don't play their game, Zara said. We found a way to break the board entirely.
How?
I asked. They've covered every option. Not every option, Kieran said slowly. They're expecting you to either submit or refuse outright. But what if you do neither? I don't understand, I said. What if you go to Stonecrest, accept your mother's public acknowledgement, but refuse to submit to alpha authority? Kieran's eyes were bright with the dangerous kind of thinking that got wolves killed. Make it clear you're willing to be part of the pack, but as an equal to the alpha, not beneath him. That's insane, Zara said. No wolf challenges alpha authority like that. It's grounds for immediate execution. Not if she's strong enough that executing her would cost too much, Kieran argued. Ravenna beat Darius in single combat. Every pack in the territories knows that. If Thaddeus tries to execute her for not submitting, he risks looking weak. Afraid of a wolf he can't control. Or he risks looking strong for putting down a threat to pack order, Matthias countered. It could go either way. Then we make sure it goes our way, I said, an idea forming. What if I'm not alone when I refuse to submit? What if other wolves, rogues from Haven, come with me? Stand with me as witnesses and support. You be bringing rogues into pack territory, Zara said. That's provocative as hell. Exactly, I said. It forces Thaddeus to make a choice. Does he allow rogues to attend the celebration because refusing would seem petty? Or does he bar them and look like he's afraid of witnesses who aren't under his authority? Either way, you're creating a scene, Matthias said. Turning what should be a simple reconciliation into a political statement about pack hierarchy and authority. Good, I said, surprising myself with the vehemence in my voice. Let it be a statement. Let every low-ranked wolf watching see that you don't have to submit to be acknowledged. That you can demand respect without bowing. Yes, my wolf agreed fiercely. Show them what we are. Not a tamed threat, but a force they have to negotiate with. This is dangerous, Matthias warned. If it goes wrong, it won't just be you who pays the price. Any rogues who go with you will be at risk too. Then I'll only take volunteers, I said. People who understand the risk and choose to take it anyway. I volunteer, Kieran said immediately. Same, Zara added. You're both idiots, Matthias grumbled. But I suppose someone has to keep you from getting killed. Count me in. I felt something unfamiliar swelling in my chest. Not just gratitude, but something deeper. The bone-deep certainty that I wasn't alone anymore. That I had people who would stand with me, even when standing with me meant walking into danger. Thank you, I said quietly. All of you. Thank us after we survive this insanity, Zara said. Now, let's start planning. If we're going to walk into Stonecrest and challenge their entire power structure, we need to be smart about it. We spent the next 4 days preparing. I practiced my speech, the exact words I'd use to accept my mother's acknowledgement while refusing to submit to alpha authority. Matthias coached me on pack law and precedent, finding historical examples of wolves who'd negotiated equal standing with alphas. Kieran organized the volunteers, 15 rogues who wanted to come to Stonecrest to witness this moment, to be part of something that might change how packs viewed rogues and hierarchy. And Zara made sure we were all armed, just in case. The night before we were set to leave, I stood at the edge of Haven's territory, looking out at the forest that separated me from my former home. Scared? My wolf asked. Terrified, I admitted. What if this goes wrong? What if I get these people killed because I'm too proud to submit? Then we die standing, my wolf said simply, instead of living on our knees. Isn't that what you've been teaching the rogues? That worth isn't determined by submission? Teaching is different than living it, I said. Not anymore, my wolf said. Not for us. She was right. I'd spent 2 months telling Haven's rogues that they deserved dignity and respect regardless of their rank or power. That the pack hierarchy wasn't absolute. Now it was time to prove I believed my own words, even if it killed me. So here's where I am. I'm going back to Stonecrest in the morning, to the pack that tried to destroy me, to face my mother, who wants public reconciliation, and my father, who wants public submission. I'm bringing 15 rogues with me, witnesses, supporters, people who are willing to risk their lives to stand with me while I do something incredibly stupid. I'm going to accept my mother's acknowledgement, but I'm going to refuse to submit to the Alpha. I'm going to demand they treat me as an equal, not as a threat to be controlled. And I'm either going to change how packs view power and hierarchy, or I'm going to die trying. Delilah told me to find a third option, to be smarter than simple submission or refusal. I think I found it. I'm just not sure if it's brilliant or suicidal. What do you think? Is standing up for your worth, even when it means risking death, brave? Or is it just pride dressed up as principle? Tell me, because in 12 hours I'm going to find out. And I'd really like to know if what I'm doing is heroic or just incredibly, catastrophically stupid. Chapter 10. The journey to Stonecrest took most of the day. We traveled as a group, 16 rogues and one former pack wolf returning to the territory that had cast her out. The silver cuff around my wrist remained silent, the council's magic recognizing this as an approved visit. But I felt its weight more acutely than ever, a reminder that even this small freedom was conditional. As we crossed into Stonecrest territory, my wolf stirred restlessly in my consciousness. "This place hurt us," she said, her voice carrying 3 years of accumulated pain. "Every tree, every stone, every scent, they all remember what they did to us." "I remember too," I whispered. The path through the forest was achingly familiar. I'd walked it hundreds of times as the Hollow One, invisible and worthless. Now I walked it as the Wraith Luna, accompanied by rogues who looked to me as a symbol of resistance. The weight of that transformation was almost unbearable. We reached the main settlement as the sun began its descent, painting everything in shades of amber and crimson. The harvest moon celebration was already underway. Wolves gathered in the central square, tables laden with food, the air thick with the scent of roasted meat and celebration. Everything stopped when we entered. Hundreds of wolves turned to stare at our group. I saw shock, fear, hatred, curiosity, and in a few faces, very few, something that might have been hope. Alpha Thaddeus stood on the raised platform where the Judgment Circle had condemned me 3 months ago. Beside him stood my father, Marcus, looking older and grayer than I remembered. And my mother, Clara, her beautiful face carefully composed into an expression of maternal warmth that didn't reach her eyes. Delilah stood with the other unmated females, her golden hair braided with autumn flowers. Our eyes met across the crowd, and I felt her complex tangle of emotions through our twin bond: jealousy, regret, fear, and buried beneath it all, something that might have been relief. Ravenna Ashmore. Thaddeus's voice carried across the suddenly silent square. "You have returned to Stonecrest. Welcome home, daughter of our pack." The formal greeting, the opening move in whatever political game we were about to play. I stepped forward, my rogue companions forming a loose semicircle behind me. "Thank you, Alpha Thaddeus. I've returned at my mother's invitation to hear her words before the pack." Clara descended from the platform, moving with practiced grace through the parting crowd. Up close, I could see the lines of strain around her eyes, the silver threading her hair that hadn't been there 3 months ago. "Ravenna." Her voice trembled slightly. "My daughter. I have wronged you terribly." The crowd murmured. This was the moment they'd come to see, the public acknowledgement, the betas made admitting her failure. "For 3 years, I allowed fear to guide my actions," Clara continued, her voice carrying to every corner of the square. "Fear of what your difference meant. Fear of how your struggles reflected on our family. Fear that love might not be enough to protect you." She paused, and I saw genuine tears gathering in her eyes. "But fear is no excuse for cruelty, for abandoning my own daughter when she needed me most." For calling you a thing that should be destroyed rather than a person who deserved love. The tears spilled over. I cannot undo the past 3 years. Cannot erase the pain I caused. But I can offer you this, my sincere apology before our entire pack. And I hope that someday, you might forgive me. She held out her hands in the traditional gesture of supplication. I looked at those hands that had once braided my hair and wiped my tears before they'd pushed me away and demanded my death. Hands that were shaking now with what seemed like genuine emotion. Trap or genuine? My wolf asked. Does it matter? I murmured. Either way, this is my moment to respond. I took my mother's hands, feeling the shock ripple through the crowd. I accept your apology, I said clearly. Not because the hurt is erased, but because holding on to pain serves no one. You failed me, Mother, but I failed myself too, by believing what you said about my worth. I released her hands and turned to face the crowd. I am Ravenna Ashmore, daughter of Stonecrest Pack. I am also the Wraith Luna, a power I didn't choose but have learned to accept. And I am here to tell you that both of those things can be true at once. Thaddeus's expression sharpened. This was it, the moment where I either submitted or refused. Alpha Thaddeus, I said, meeting his ice-chip eyes. My mother has acknowledged me. The pack has witnessed our reconciliation. But there is one more thing that must be addressed. Speak, Thaddeus commanded. You expect me to submit to your authority, to prove that even a Wraith Luna can exist within the pack hierarchy. I kept my voice steady, aware that every word was being weighed and judged. But I cannot do that. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My father's face went pale, and Thaddeus's expression hardened into something dangerous. You refuse alpha authority, he said, his voice carrying a warning. I refuse to pretend that submission equals belonging. I corrected. You want me to bow so you can tell other packs that you've tamed the dangerous Wraith Luna, that you've proven power can be controlled through hierarchy and dominance. I gestured to the rogues behind me, but these wolves, cast out from their packs for being weak or defiant or different, they've proven something else. That worth isn't determined by submission. That strength comes from standing together, not from bowing alone. Careful, Ravenna, Thaddeus said softly. You're speaking of treason. I'm speaking the truth, I said. And the truth is this. I am willing to be part of the Stonecrest Pack again, to contribute my strength and my abilities to protecting our territory. But I will do so as an equal, not as a subordinate. The Wraith Luna does not bow. The silence was absolute. I could feel the shock radiating from every wolf present. Then Thaddeus began to laugh. Cold, bitter laughter that sent chills down my spine. You truly believe you can dictate terms to an alpha? He said. You, who were cast out as worthless. You think one victory against Darius Blackmark makes you my equal? I think the moon goddess made me your equal, I said quietly. And I think you know it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so desperate to make me submit. You'd simply acknowledge my strength and move on. Thaddeus's jaw clenched. You leave me no choice then. By refusing alpha authority, you've declared yourself hostile to pack interests. Guards, seize her. Warriors moved forward, hands on weapons. But before they could reach me, the rogues behind me shifted, not attacking, just transforming into their wolf forms and creating a barrier between me and the advancing guards. Wait. My father's voice cut through the tension. Marcus stepped forward, his beta's authority making the guards hesitate. Alpha Thaddeus, before we resort to violence, there may be another option. What option? Thaddeus demanded. She's refused submission. Pack law is clear. Pack law is also clear about challenges, Marcus said, and I saw where he was going. Any wolf who believes themselves equal to an alpha may issue a formal challenge. If Ravenna truly believes she's your equal, let her prove it through combat. No, my wolf snarled. This is just another trap. Another way to force us to fight or die. But I saw something in my father's eyes. A message he couldn't speak aloud but was desperately trying to communicate. Trust me. For once, trust me. I accept the option of challenge. I said carefully, but with modifications. You don't modify a challenge, Thaddeus said. You fight for dominance or you submit. Those are the only options. Then I propose a different kind of challenge. I said, the idea forming as I spoke. Not for dominance, but for recognition. A challenge that proves a Wraith Luna can exist alongside an alpha without threatening him. Explain, Thaddeus commanded. A test of control, not combat, I said. You're afraid that my power makes me dangerous, that I'll lose control and destroy the pack. So let me prove I won't. Give me a task, any task that requires strength and restraint. If I complete it without losing control, you acknowledge me as an equal. If I fail, I submit to your authority completely. I could see Thaddeus considering it. This option appealed to him because it still involved me proving myself, still putting the burden of proof on my shoulders. What task would satisfy you? I asked. What would prove that a Wraith Luna can be trusted? Thaddeus was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, sharp and cold. There's a task, he said. The northern border has been plagued by shadow-touched rogues for months. Remnants of Celeste's corrupted army that scatter whenever we send warriors, but always return. They're like a disease we can't cure, too dangerous to ignore, too elusive to eliminate. You want me to deal with them, I said, understanding. I want you to cleanse them, Thaddeus corrected. Use your Wraith Luna abilities to purify the shadow corruption without killing the wolves beneath it. Save them. The way you saved yourself from becoming what Celeste's followers tried to make you. It was brilliant and cruel. He was asking me to do something that required immense power and immense restraint. To touch shadow corruption, the thing that had destroyed the last Wraith Luna, and purify it without being corrupted myself. If I succeed? I asked. If you succeed, I will acknowledge you before all 5 major packs as a Wraith Luna who can coexist with pack society. An equal, as you've demanded. And if I fail... If you fail, if you kill even one of those corrupted wolves, or if you become tainted by shadow yourself, you will submit to my authority completely. You will be bound by a magical contract to obey every command I give for the rest of your life. The crowd erupted in whispers. This was more than a simple challenge. This was a binding agreement that would determine the future of not just me, but every Wraith Luna who might come after. Don't agree, my wolf urged. It's too dangerous. Shadow corruption destroyed Saren. It could destroy us too. How many shadow-touched rogues are there? I asked. 12 that we know of, Thaddeus said. Possibly more. 12 lives hanging in the balance. 12 wolves who'd been corrupted through no fault of their own, turned into monsters by Celeste's dark magic. I could walk away. Refuse the challenge. Let those 12 wolves remain corrupted until Stonecrest warriors eventually killed them. Or I could try to save them. And in doing so, prove that a Wraith Luna could wield terrible power without becoming terrible herself. I accept the challenge, I said. Thaddeus's smile widened. Then it begins at dawn. You have until sunset tomorrow to cleanse all 12 shadow-touched rogues. Fail to purify even one, and the contract activates. You'll become my bound subordinate, stripped of all autonomy. He raised his hand, and I felt magic crackling in the air, ancient pack magic being woven into a binding contract. Do you agree to these terms, Ravenna Ashmore? I felt the weight of hundreds of eyes on me. Felt Kieran's concern, Zara's fear, Matthias's grim acceptance that I'd just committed to something that might destroy me. And I felt my mother's hand on my shoulder, squeezing once in silent support or farewell. I agree, I said. The magic settled over me like chains, binding me to the challenge. There was no backing out now. They gave us a tent on the edge of Stonecrest territory to spend the night. My rogue companions gathered around me, their expressions ranging from supportive to terrified. You didn't have to agree to that, Kieran said quietly. We could have fought our way out, and proven I'm exactly the threat they fear? I shook my head. No. This is better. If I succeed, I prove Wraith Lunas can be trusted. And if I fail, you become a slave to Alpha authority for the rest of your life, Zara finished bluntly. That's not acceptable, Ravenna. It's the price of the gamble I took, I said. I demanded to be treated as an equal. This is Thaddeus calling my bluff. Prove you're equal by doing something no normal wolf could do. Shadow corruption killed the last Wraith Luna, Matthias said, pulling out Saren's journal. She tried to cleanse corrupted wolves in her final year. Every attempt failed. The shadow either consumed the wolf completely or infected Saren herself, making her more unstable. Comforting, I muttered. I'm not trying to comfort you, Matthias said. I'm trying to prepare you. Saren's journal has notes about her attempts. What worked, what didn't. What signs to watch for that indicate you're being corrupted. He handed me the journal, open to a page covered in frantic handwriting. The shadow isn't just corruption. It's intelligence. It learns.
Adapts.
The first wolf I tried to cleanse, the shadow withdrew when I pushed light into it, hiding in the deepest parts of the wolf's soul where my power couldn't reach. When I thought I'd succeeded, the shadow emerged stronger than before and consumed the wolf entirely. The shadow wants me to fail, wants me to become frustrated, angry, desperate, because those emotions make me vulnerable to its influence. I read several more pages, each describing failed cleansing attempts and Saren's growing frustration. By the end, her handwriting had become nearly illegible, her rage bleeding through every word. This was what I was facing, an intelligent corruption that wanted me to fail, that would use my own emotions against me. How did she finally succumb? I asked Matthias. She stopped trying to save the corrupted wolves, he said heavily. Decided it was easier to kill them and be done with it. And once she made that choice, once she chose destruction over healing, the shadow found its way into her heart. After that, it was only a matter of time. I closed the journal and looked at my companions. I need to do this alone. Absolutely not, Kieran said immediately. If the shadow tries to corrupt you, you'll need someone there to pull you back. Or I'll need someone there who can kill me before I become what Saren became, I said quietly. The weight of that statement settled over the tent like a shroud. I'm not killing you, Zara said flatly. Then I hope you don't have to, I said. But if the worst happens, if you see me losing control, becoming corrupted, you have to promise you'll end it. Don't let me become a monster. One by one, reluctantly, they promised. I spent the night studying Saren's notes and trying not to think about the fact that in a few hours, I'd be attempting something that had destroyed the last Wraith Luna. Dawn came too quickly. Thaddeus's warriors led us to the northern border, where the shadow-touched rogues had been seen. The area was desolate, trees blackened and twisted, the ground itself seeming wrong in ways I couldn't quite name. There and there, a warrior said, pointing to a rocky outcrop surrounded by dead vegetation. We've had them trapped for 2 days. Haven't engaged because you requested live targets. Thank you, I said, though the words tasted bitter. Live targets. That's what I'd asked for. Corrupted wolves I could try to save rather than kill. Now I had to actually do it. I stripped off my outer clothes, preparing to shift. Everyone stay back. If this goes wrong, I don't want the shadow spreading to anyone else. Ravenna, Kieran started. I know, I said. I'll be careful. I promise. I shifted, my silver wolf form emerging smoothly. The transformation was effortless now. I'd practiced so much over the past 2 months that it felt as natural as breathing. Ready? I asked my wolf. No, she said, honestly. But we're doing this anyway. I approached the rocky outcrop, feeling the wrongness intensify with each step. The shadow corruption was thick here, a cloying, oily presence that made my wolf instincts scream danger. The first corrupted wolf emerged from behind the rocks. It had once been a large male, probably a warrior from some pack. Now its fur was matted and dark, its eyes glowing that sickly red that marked shadow corruption. When it saw me, it snarled, not the natural aggression of a territorial wolf, but something twisted and wrong. Cleanse it, I thought. Don't fight it. Just cleanse it. I reached out with my empathic ability, trying to feel the wolf beneath the corruption. But all I found was rage and hunger and a terrible, gnawing emptiness that wanted to consume everything it touched. The shadow. I pushed divine light into that darkness, trying to burn it away the way I destroyed the shadow totems months ago. The corrupted wolf screamed, a sound no natural wolf should make, and collapsed, writhing. For a moment I thought it was working. The red glow in its eyes flickered, and I felt the wolf's true consciousness stirring beneath the corruption. Then the shadow adapted. It withdrew from the areas where my light was strongest, concentrating itself in the wolf's heart and brain, the parts one couldn't burn without killing the wolf entirely. Hide and wait, the shadow seemed to whisper. She'll think she's won. Then we'll emerge stronger. No, I growled aloud. I pulled back my divine light and tried a different approach. Instead of burning the shadow out, I tried to understand it. I opened my empathic sense fully, not trying to control or manipulate, but simply to feel what the shadow was, what it wanted. And I felt something that shocked me. The shadow wasn't just corruption or evil. It was painful, ancient, terrible pain that had been compressed and twisted until it became something monstrous. Pain that sought to inflict itself on others because inflicting pain was the only way it knew how to exist. The shadow realm, I realized, it's a place of suffering. And when that suffering breaks through into our world, it becomes this corruption that spreads pain because pain is all it knows. If I could purify that pain, I reached deeper, past the corruption, past the wolf's buried consciousness, into the very essence of the shadow itself. And I felt everything. Centuries of torment. Of being trapped in a realm where nothing existed but suffering. Of desperate, mindless hunger for any sensation other than pain. The shadow had corrupted these wolves not out of malice, but because it was trying to escape its own agony by consuming others. Understanding flooded through me. And with understanding came something unexpected. Compassion. I gathered my divine light, not as a weapon this time, but as a balm, as healing instead of burning. And I poured it into the shadow's pain. The corrupted wolf convulsed. The red glow in its eyes flickered wildly. And slowly, gradually, the darkness began to recede. Not because I destroyed it, but because I'd given it something it had never known. Relief. Peace. An end to endless suffering. The shadow dissolved like mist in sunlight, and the wolf beneath collapsed, panting and exhausted but free. It worked, my wolf breathed in awe. We saved it. But there were 11 more. And I could already feel the toll the cleansing had taken on me. My divine light felt dimmer, depleted from the effort of healing rather than destroying. I looked back at my companions watching from a safe distance. At Thaddeus and his warriors, witnessing this attempt. At Delilah, standing among the Stonecrest crowd with an unreadable expression. 11 more wolves to save before sunset. And if I failed even once, I'd be bound to Thaddeus's authority for the rest of my life. We can do this, my wolf said, though she sounded uncertain. We have to, I whispered. And I went to find the next corrupted wolf. By the time the sun reached its peak, I'd cleansed 7 wolves. Each one was harder than the last. The shadow learned from each purification, adapting its defenses, hiding deeper in its host. And with each cleansing, I felt my own light dimming, my strength draining. We need to rest, my wolf said as I approached the 8th corrupted wolf. We're pushing too hard. We'll burn out. I have until sunset. I panted. That's not enough time to rest. Then we'll fail. You can't heal when you're empty yourself. She was right. I could feel it, the dangerous depletion of my divine essence. I was running on fumes, trying to give light I no longer had. But what choice did I have? 12 wolves needed cleansing. I'd only done 7. The 8th wolf, a female, smaller than the others, emerged from the rocks. Her red eyes fixed on me, and I felt the shadow's hunger radiating from her. Different, my wolf observed. This shadow feels different. Older. More aware. I reached out with my empathic ability and recoiled. This wasn't just shadow corruption. This was something else. Something ancient and intelligent that had been using the corrupted wolves as hosts. Wraith Luna. The shadow spoke directly into my mind, its voice like grinding stone. The one who thinks she can heal what was never meant to be healed. You're not just corruption, I said aloud. You're consciousness. Something from the shadow realm that's maintaining these corruptions deliberately. I am pain given form, the shadow entity said. I am the accumulated suffering of 1,000 years, compressed into awareness. And you cannot heal me, little wolf. I am too vast, too old, too deeply rooted in agony. Then why possess these wolves? I asked, stalling for time while I tried to figure out how to fight this. Why spread your suffering? Because suffering alone is unbearable, the entity said, and I felt genuine anguish in its words. When I inflict pain on others, for just a moment, I am not alone in my torment. For just a moment, I have company in my hell. The female wolf's body was shaking, fighting against the entity's control.
She's still in there, I realized.
The wolf is still fighting. But if I try to cleanse her the way I did the others, this ancient entity will just move to another host. What if I offered you something else? I said, what if instead of spreading your suffering, I gave you a way to end it? You would offer a shadow entity mercy? The voice sounded disbelieving. You would heal the thing that corrupted these wolves? I would try, I said. Because I understand. I know what it's like to be in pain so deep you can't remember what it was like to not hurt. I lived like that for 3 years. And someone showed me that the pain doesn't have to define me. Lies, the entity snarled. You're trying to trick me. To weaken my defenses, so you can destroy me. I'm offering you the truth, I said quietly. Pain can be healed. Even ancient pain. Even pain that feels eternal. But you have to stop spreading it to others. You have to release these wolves and let me try to help you. Silence stretched between us. I could feel the entity's internal war, the desperate desire to believe me against centuries of learned helplessness. If you fail, the entity finally said, if you cannot heal me, I will consume you entirely. Your light will become part of my darkness, and I will be stronger than ever. I accept those terms, I said. Ravenna, no, my wolf protested. But I'd already committed. The entity released its hold on the female wolf, who collapsed unconscious. And the shadow gathered itself, coalescing into a form that was almost solid, a writhing mass of darkness that pulsed with ancient pain. Heal me if you can, Wraith Luna, it challenged. Show me that mercy is stronger than suffering. I reached out with everything I had left. My divine light was nearly exhausted. I'd used so much of it cleansing the previous wolves that I had barely anything remaining. But I gathered what little light I still possessed and pushed it toward the shadow entity. Not as an attack. Not as purification. But as understanding. As a shared experience. As the memory of my own pain and how I'd learned to survive it. I showed the entity my 3 years as the hollow one. The mockery. The cruelty. The soul-deep certainty that I was worthless. I showed it how that pain had nearly destroyed me, and then I showed it what came after. Finding my wolf. Discovering I had power. Learning that pain didn't define my worth. Meeting wolves who saw me as valuable despite my suffering. This is what healing looks like, I projected. Not the erasure of pain, but the transformation of it. The choice to let suffering make you stronger instead of letting it make you cruel. The shadow entity absorbed my memories, my experiences, my hard-won understanding. And slowly, impossibly, it began to change. The darkness didn't disappear, pain that ancient couldn't simply vanish. But it transformed from something toxic into something bearable, manageable. No longer an all-consuming force, but a part of a larger whole. The entity gave a sound that might have been a sob. How did you do this? It whispered. How did you take my pain and make it into something I can live with? By accepting that pain is part of existence, I said, exhausted beyond measure. And choosing what to do with it. You can spread it to others, making them suffer as you've suffered. Or you can transform it into something that helps instead of hurts. I don't know how to help, the entity said. I've only ever known how to harm. Then learn. I said simply. You have eternity. Use some of it to figure out what you want to be, beyond pain incarnate. The entity was quiet for a long moment. Then it began to disperse, not disappearing entirely, but withdrawing, going somewhere else, somewhere it could exist without actively harming others. Thank you, Wraith Luna, its fading voice said. You have shown me mercy I did not deserve. Perhaps someday I can return that gift. Then it was gone. And so was my divine light. I'd used every last bit of my power, healing the entity. I had nothing left. Ravenna, my wolf said urgently. We have 4 more wolves to cleanse. And we're empty. We can't do this. She was right. I could barely stand, let alone perform 4 more complex purifications. I'd failed. I'd gotten so close. Cleansed 8 wolves, freed an ancient shadow entity, but I'd burned out before completing the challenge, which meant the binding contract would activate. I'd become Thaddeus's subordinate, stripped of all autonomy. No, my wolf snarled. We don't accept this. There has to be another way. But I couldn't see one. I'd gambled everything on being able to complete the challenge, and I'd lost. I shifted back to human form and stood there naked and exhausted before the watching crowd. I can't do it, I said, my voice barely carrying. I don't have enough power left to cleanse the remaining 4 wolves. The challenge failed. Thaddeus stepped forward, and I saw satisfaction in his eyes. Then by the terms of the binding contract. Wait. My father's voice cut through again. There's a provision in pack law. When a wolf has expended all their power in service to the pack, they may request aid from pack members to complete their task.
She's not packed, Thaddeus said.
She refused to submit, remember? She's pack-born, Marcus corrected. And she's attempted a task that benefits Stonecrest by removing a threat to our borders. That qualifies her for the aid provision. Thaddeus's jaw clenched. Even if I accept that interpretation, which I don't, who would aid her? She's a rogue. She has no pack ties left. I'll aid her. The voice came from the crowd. I looked up to see Delilah stepping forward, her golden hair catching the afternoon sunlight. You, Thaddeus said incredulously. You're the one who bound her wolf in the first place. Why would you help her now? Because she's my twin, Delilah said simply. And because I owe her 3 years of stolen time. This is my chance to repay that debt. She walked toward me, and I saw genuine determination in her eyes. Not affection, we were too damaged for that, but something approaching honor. How would this work? I asked Matthias quietly as Delilah approached. Pack bonds allow the sharing of power, he explained. If Delilah formally bonds with you as packkin, she can lend you her wolf's strength to complete the cleansing. But it requires trust. Complete openness. If either of you holds back, the bond won't form. Trust Delilah, the sister who deliberately bound my wolf and orchestrated my suffering. But also the sister who'd warned me about the trap. Who'd shown me mercy when she could have let me walk into destruction. Do you accept my aid? Delilah asked, holding out her hand. I looked at that hand. The same one that had pushed me away for 3 years. The same one that was now offering help. Why? I asked.
Really?
Because you're better than me, Delilah said quietly. You always were. I just couldn't see it past my own jealousy. And I'm tired of being the sister who tears others down instead of building them up. Not forgiveness. Not reconciliation. Just acknowledgement and a chance to do better. I took her hand. The pack bond formed instantly, a connection deeper than empathy, more intimate than mind speech. I felt Delilah's wolf merging with mine, her golden strength flowing into my depleted reserves. And Delilah felt everything I was. Everything I'd experienced. The pain, the growth, the choices I'd made. Oh goddess, her mental voice whispered. I had no idea. I knew I hurt you, but I didn't understand how deep it went.
You couldn't understand, I said.
You've never been powerless. Never been told you're worthless. I'm sorry, Delilah said, and through the bond, I felt that she meant it. I can't undo what I did, but I can help you finish this. Together, we approached the 9th corrupted wolf. With Delilah's power supplementing my own, the cleansing was faster. Still difficult, still requiring careful balance between healing and burning, but possible. The 9th wolf collapsed, freed of corruption. Then the 10th, the 11th. By the time we reached the 12th and final wolf, the sun was touching the horizon. We had minutes, maybe seconds, before sunset and the challenge's deadline. We can do this, Delilah said. Together. We reached out as one, silver light and golden light intertwined, working in harmony the way we should have been able to as twins if circumstances had been different. The shadow fought. This was its last host, and it clung desperately to the wolf's consciousness. But our combined power was too much. Too bright, too pure, too determined. The corruption burned away. The 12th wolf collapsed, cleansed and free. And the sun touched the horizon. I'd done it. With Delilah's help, I'd completed the impossible challenge. The crowd erupted in shocked chatter. Thaddeus looked like he'd swallowed something bitter. And my father was smiling with what looked like genuine pride. I released Delilah's hand, breaking the pack bond, and staggered. Every muscle in my body was screaming. My divine light was completely exhausted. I'd pushed myself further than I'd ever gone before. But I succeeded. The challenge is complete, I said, forcing the words through exhausted lips. All 12 shadow-touched wolves are cleansed. I've proven that a Wraith Luna can wield power without losing control. Thaddeus was silent for a long moment. Then, grudgingly, he nodded. The terms are fulfilled. The binding contract is void. He raised his voice to address the crowd. Ravenna Ashmore has proven herself worthy of recognition. I acknowledge her before Stonecrest Pack as a Wraith Luna who can coexist with Pack society. As an equal in power, if not in authority. It wasn't everything I demanded, but it was something. Recognition without full equality. Acknowledgement without acceptance. A beginning. Thank you, Alpha, I said. Don't thank me, Thaddeus said. You earned this through your own merit. I simply couldn't deny what was plainly demonstrated. He paused. But Ravenna, this changes nothing about Pack hierarchy. You may be recognized as powerful, but you're still subject to council oversight and monitoring. I understand, I said. And I did. This wasn't victory, it was progress. Small, hard-won progress toward a world where wolves like me didn't have to choose between submission and death. As the crowd dispersed, talking excitedly about what they'd witnessed, I stood there with Delilah beside me. Thank you, I said quietly. Don't, Delilah said. This doesn't make us even. Doesn't erase what I did. It just makes the debt a little smaller. Maybe that's enough, I said. For now. Delilah studied me for a long moment. You really believe that, don't you? That small progress is enough. That slow change is worthwhile. I have to believe it, I said. Because the alternative is Saren's path. All or nothing. Burn it all down if you can't fix everything at once. And that path ends in death and destruction. The patient path, Delilah said softly. I never had the patience for it. Too desperate to prove myself, to be the best to matter. You matter without proving anything, I said. You just have to believe it. Maybe I will, Delilah said. Someday. She walked away, back to her place among the unmated females. Back to her life in a pack that still believed in hierarchy and submission. But I'd planted a seed. Show her another way. And maybe someday, it would grow into something that changed her the way I'd been changed. We returned to Haven 3 days later, after the Harvest Moon celebrations concluded. The rogues who'd accompanied me spread word of what had happened, the challenge, the cleansing, Thaddeus's grudging recognition. Within days, Haven was flooded with new arrivals. Wolves from other packs who'd heard about the Wraith Luna, who'd proven power, didn't require submission. We had to expand the settlement, build new structures, create systems for integrating so many new wolves. It was exhausting, overwhelming. Nothing like the simple survival I'd expected when I first arrived at Haven 4 months ago. But it was also hopeful. Every wolf who came to Haven was a wolf choosing something different. Choosing to believe that worth wasn't determined by rank or bloodline or strength. Choosing to believe that another way was possible. 6 months after my return from Stonecrest, I stood before the Grand Council again for my mandated check-in. The 5 alphas studied me with varying degrees of interest and suspicion. Report, Alpha Selene commanded. Have you maintained control over your Wraith Luna abilities? Yes, I said. No incidents. No loss of control. And the Haven settlement? Rowan asked. We hear it's grown substantially. We have over 300 residents now, I said. Rogues seeking an alternative to pack life. We're completely self-sufficient. We don't request aid or protection from any pack. We simply ask to be left in peace to build our community. A community that challenges the very foundation of pack society, Darius said. His tone wasn't hostile exactly, but wary. You're creating a place where strength doesn't determine worth, where hierarchy is voluntary rather than enforced. Do you not see how that threatens the system that's kept our kind stable for centuries? I see how it threatens the system that's crushed wolves like me for centuries, I corrected gently. But I don't see how offering an alternative threatens packs who are secure in their own structure. If your hierarchy is strong, you have nothing to fear from wolves choosing differently. Unless your different choice spreads, Cormac said. Unless low-ranked wolves in our packs see Haven and decide submission isn't necessary, then we have a rebellion. Chaos. The collapse of order. Or, I said, you have wolves who choose to stay in packs because they genuinely value what pack life offers, not because they're too afraid to leave. Isn't loyalty that's chosen stronger than loyalty that's forced? The alphas exchanged glances. You make a compelling argument, Selene finally said. But words are easy. Time will tell if your experiment in Haven succeeds or fails. We will continue to monitor your progress. I expect nothing less, I said. As I left the council chambers, I felt the silver cuff around my wrist, still there, still restricting my movements. I was still monitored, still on probation, still one mistake away from losing everything. But I was also free in ways I'd never been before. Free to build something new. Free to help wolves who'd been crushed by the same system that had nearly destroyed me. Free to be both Ravenna and the Wraith Luna, without having to choose between them. It wasn't the dramatic revolution Saren had sought. It wasn't the complete overthrow of the pack hierarchy. But it changed. Real, measurable, sustainable change. And that was enough.
For now.
1 year after my trial at the Grand Council, Haven had grown into something I never imagined. 500 wolves now called it home. We'd built proper houses, established trade with neutral merchants, created systems of governance that didn't rely on hierarchy or dominance. It wasn't perfect. We had disputes, disagreements, wolves who struggled with the transition from pack life to voluntary community. But we worked through them together, without anyone having to submit or bow. I stood on the hill overlooking the settlement, watching the sun set over our ramshackle turned sturdy buildings. Kieran joined me, as he often did these days. Thinking profound thoughts, he asked. Thinking about how far we've come, I said. A year ago, I was the hollow one, worthless,
broken.
Now I'm the Wraith Luna who changed the Northern Territories, Kieran finished. The wolf who proved power doesn't require cruelty and strength doesn't require submission. I didn't change anything, I protested. Haven is still small. The packs still operate the same way. Most wolves still believe in hierarchy. But some don't, Kieran said. And that number grows every day. You planted seeds, Ravenna. You can't control how they grow, but you can nurture them and trust that some will take root. He was right. I'd spent so long being told I was worthless that I still struggled to see my own impact. But the wolves in Haven, they saw it. Every day, they showed me through their presence that what we'd built mattered. My council monitoring period ends in 6 months, I said. After that, this cuff comes off and I'm officially free of restrictions. Will you stay in Haven?
Kieran asked.
Or will you travel? Spread your message to other territories. I don't have a message, I said. I just have a life. And I want to live it here, with wolves who've become family. Even though family hurt you? Especially because my family hurt me, I said. I know what it's like to be abandoned by the people who should love you most. So, I'm going to build a family that doesn't abandon anyone. That sees worth in every wolf, regardless of their power or lack thereof. Kieran smiled. That sounds like a message to me. Maybe it was. Maybe I'd become something I never intended, a symbol, a leader, a force for change in a system that desperately needed changing. Or maybe I was just Ravenna, a wolf who'd been hurt and had chosen to transform that hurt into something that helped instead of harmed. Either way, I was finally free to choose who I wanted to be. And I chose to be both. The broken girl from the storage room and the divine power who'd beaten an ancient alpha. The Hollow One and the Wraith Luna. Ravenna and the Silver Death. All of it. All of me. Finally, completely, irrevocably mine. So here we are. 1 year later. Haven is thriving. I'm still monitored, still restricted, but in 6 months this cuff comes off and I'll be truly free for the first time in my life. Did I change the pack system?
No.
Not really. Most packs still operate on hierarchy and submission. Most alphas still believe strength determines worth. But I proved it doesn't have to be that way. I proved you can have power without cruelty, strength without submission, community without dominance. And maybe that's enough. Maybe small changes, one wolf, one choice, one moment of mercy at a time. Maybe that's how real transformation happens. Not through revolution or destruction, but through patience and persistence and refusing to become the monster they expect you to be. I'm not Saren. I didn't destroy 7 packs or become the thing everyone feared. I became something different, something better. I became myself. And that, finally, is enough. The end. This concludes Ravenna's journey. Thank you for following the story of the Wraith Luna who chose mercy over vengeance, patience over revolution, and healing over destruction.